The plane cuts through the soft clouds high in the sky with its wide and long wings. The guy, unexpectedly for himself and the others, showed unprecedented courage. Thanks to him, he was able to buy some time for the flight attendants and instill confidence in the rest of the passengers. All 4 terrorists from the plane were captured alive, and none of the hostages were injured. Apart from the main character, he's a typical homebody. But for some reason, it was at this moment that he decided to prove himself. To be honest, he was very scared, and the guy regrets his action. Moments from his life flash before his face. All of them are connected with games and films. The hero is already 22 years old and has never had a girlfriend. Sometimes he spied on his neighbor but did not dare to talk to her. The guy's eyes suddenly open, and his facial expression changes in surprise. Someone is calling him, trying to wake him up. The main character gets out of bed, looking around at his friend, nicknamed Noodles, sitting on the floor, and then asks if he is alive. The guy replies that his friend, nicknamed Batten, is still alive, but if he doesn't go to class again today, then everything may change. The hero gets out of his bed and walks around his room to assess the situation and understand where he is. Probably the place is a dormitory. He decides to put a bed rod in his mouth and says that the metal tastes like iron. The guy also starts the computer and thinks that it turns on without any problems. His gaze also falls on the table. The Empress figurine is beautiful as always. The guy looks into the kitchen. There are only napkins in his friend's bucket. His friend snatches the bucket from his hands and is outraged that he is rummaging through the trash. The main character asks his friend to hit him in the face, and the man's smile sparkles with a radiant smile. A friend says that he will do anything for his friend. Today is a promotion. Order 1 and get 2 for free. The guy hits his friend twice. He rubs his cheek and understands that since it hurts so much, it can't be a dream. The friend laughs loudly and even bends over from a surge of emotion. He says that his friend is behaving very strangely today. The main character fearfully asks what date is today. The acquaintance calmly replies that today's date is the 7th of August. The guy is shocked by what he hears. Emotions change on his face every second. He can't believe his ears. A friend jokingly asks the main character what happened to him. He does not understand the reason for his worries. The guy says that he urgently needs a shower. Entering the bathroom, he slowly turns on the shower. Warm water begins to pour on him. His body becomes wet. The main character does not understand what happened to him. In the last memory, it was the 11th of November, but today is already the 7th of August. He not only did not die, but also moved 3 months ago. Apparently this is a reward for all his good deeds in life, or the universe has decided that the guy hasn't done everything yet. He doesn't understand why he only moved back 3 months, and they went back 3 years in other stories. People are sometimes reborn as babies, and they have plenty of time to succeed. Unfortunately, the guy was given only 3 months, during which time no events happened to him that could radically change his fate. The main character begins to wash himself much more aggressively than before. He is disappointed that he never bought lottery tickets. He also doesn't understand why his time travel kit doesn't include at least a trainer. The guy squeezes the soap in his hands and then slips out of them. The soap bounces off the floor several times and remains lying on the bottom of the bathtub. Batten thinks that he has become completely insolent. He should be glad that he was alive, and not complain that everything could have been different. Since the universe gave the guy another chance, it would be worth using it wisely. The main character plans to find a girl, travel to another country, go to a concert of his favorite band, and attend an anime festival. He promises himself that he will try and eventually achieve everything, but suddenly the guy is distracted from his thoughts by some strange sound. Batten assumes that this trainer will probably become rich or have an unlimited bank account. Perhaps he will become irresistible to girls. Suddenly, unfortunately for the main character, the sound disappears and only the sound of pouring water remains. The guy is disappointed that his trainer was a pressure cooker. A friend through the door asks how long he's going to take a shower, because today their teacher will probably be conducting a roll call. The guys go outside. The weather is great, the sky is clear. They approach a brick building, which is an art academy. Noodles says that he should forget about the system for now, because when their teacher takes roll call, no one should be late. A fair-haired guy hugging a red-haired girl waves his hand and wonders how his friends are doing. Noodles greets an acquaintance named Mason and also shows a welcoming hand gesture. He also wonders who his red-haired friend is, whom he hugs. Mason explains that this is his new girlfriend named Catherine. He loves her madly and begins to sing out of a surge of feelings. The lady asks him to stop because she's embarrassed. Noodle pats his friend on the back and says that only the main character is now left without a girlfriend. After what has been said, he smiles widely and asks him why he is so upset. Mason explains that in this business the main thing is initiative and perseverance. The main character imagines himself as a dog chewing on a bone and asks a caustic question in his head. Batten says goodbye to the guys and says that it's time for him to go to school, pledging to talk to them next time. Noodles runs after the guy, actively waving his arms to quickly cover the distance that has appeared. The guy tries to calm his friend down and says that if Mason has a lady of his heart, then Batten will definitely succeed, because in their academy the ratio of girls to boys is 1-4. It's only important to throw nets. Batten asks to be silent so as not to complicate the situation, but suddenly someone catches his eye, distracting him from the dialogue. This is a dark-haired girl in a bright pink dress named Mary, who studies at the same academy with them. Noodles smiles widely, looking at his mutual friend. Apparently, an idea has come to his mind. He argues with his friend that he will not be able to approach her and talk. Batten grabs his friend by the collar of his jacket, angrily answering his proposal with a counter-question. The girl stops and calls Batten by name. His name is John. She wonders what he's doing. A friend says that there is no better opportunity to talk to her, so he suggests approaching the girl right now. The main character gathers his strength, mentally supporting himself, and goes to a lady who sympathizes with him. The guy begins to sing, saying that he has been in love with Mary for a very long time. The girl smiles sweetly, listening to him. He thinks that singing all this was clearly unnecessary. Mary starts laughing loudly, asking John if he's okay. He replies that everything is fine with him and says that he has liked her for a long time, after which he offers to be together. The lady exhales noisily and asks the main character to stop joking. John puts his hand on his chest and assures Mary that everything he said now is not a joke. She explains to him that the guy has always been a good person for her, but she, unfortunately, perceives him only as a brother. The girl quickly leaves in an unknown direction, saying that she still has a lot of things to do. Noodles pats his friend on the back to encourage him and help him deal with the sad situation. John sniffles pitifully and looks disappointedly towards the leaving girl. A board appears in front of the main character with a message about the start of a new mission. If he receives 100 refusals, he receives a +3 to his hand speed. Suddenly a bell is heard on the street, announcing the start of classes. Noodles takes his friend by the hand and pulls him forward. A janitor slowly sweeps the streets while the boys run into the academy premises. The teacher begins to mark his students, calling last name after last name. She continues to follow the list of students, calls the name of Nicholas, who is also present. Having reached John through the magazine, the woman calls his name. Without hearing an answer, she repeats it again in case the guy did not hear. As soon as she begins to clarify with her classmates whether the main character is definitely not among those present, he and his friend run into the audience, shouting that they have arrived. They grab their legs and bend over, breathing heavily from running and the stress of being late for class. The woman clutches the magazine with surnames tighter, irritated by yet another delay. Noodles scratches his head, trying to justify himself. He says that John had diarrhea this morning. The dean of the animation faculty, Julia, says that the students will have their final score reduced by 10 on the exam. The woman begins to lead the couple, talking about cultural guides in the transmission of images and the study of fine arts. Batten's head hurts a lot because he is not interested in listening to such information, and the teacher himself does not like him very much. Nicholas, on the contrary, really likes this subject. He listens with interest and absorbs all the information. Noodles draws funny drawings in his own notebook, with Julia in the lead role. He calls her a witch and is indignant that the woman was furious as if the guys came at the end of the couple, although they were only 5 minutes late. Suddenly, the friend notices that the main character does not move at all and does not react to everything he says. He pulls him by the shoulder. Worried about his friend's condition, it seems to the guy that John is terribly shaken by the situation with Mary. In his mind, the main character looks at the board with the inscription about the beginning of a new mission. Apparently, this is the trainer. He doesn't yet understand what the inscription about receiving 100 refusals means and assumes that a good guy is a system for obtaining achievements. The guy doesn't want to feel like a loser 100 times. He'll quickly burn out of shame. He is also not very happy with the reward, because usually they offer super weapons or tame dragons for completing tasks. The main character even agrees to a plus to charisma or strength, but he clearly doesn't need hand speed. Apparently, if he gets rejected 100 times and the guy turns out to be hopeless, then increasing his hand speed will make his fate easier. Loaf looks at his palm, thinking about all the information he recently received. He bends his hand, continuing to examine it and look for what has been added. The main character begins to swing it from side to side. The speed has really increased. His friend is shocked by what is happening. Apparently his friend has not become a fool, but has simply gone mad. The dean of animation pays attention to the actions of the guys at their desks. She looks at them with displeasure, and then calls out to John so that he will pay attention to her and stop doing what he was doing earlier. The guy looks up and sees an angry Julia in front of him, looking at him with irritation. The consciousness of the main character plays, and he imagines that there is a lot of negative energy around the woman. John shrinks from feeling pressure from her and says that he is in place. She replies with indignation on her face that she already sees it. The main character gets upset and regrets that he paid attention to himself. Julia says that information has been brought to her that John's recent absence is due to the fact that he was writing a report on the classification of clothing from different eras. The guy falls into a stupor. Everything she says evokes negative emotions in him. He didn't make any report. Probably his friend told the woman something like that. The main character stands up awkwardly and is about to explain himself, coming up with some kind of excuse. He can't just go ahead and tell the truth, because in fact he was busy watching anime all this time. Julia asks him to speak up, unable to come up with anything. The guy admits that he was making a report all this time. The woman hopes that at the next lesson the main character will present his work to the group. She angrily adds that he has 3 days to do this, probably realizing that John had no report in his mind. The guy says that he understood her. Now he has to do his schoolwork instead of spending his time as he wants. It's dark outside. Only a lone lantern illuminates a small path. The main character is sitting in some room next to a laptop, working on his project. It took him 3 hours to compile the content. Fortunately, the guy is well acquainted with this topic. But unfortunately, it is quite difficult to draw everything in 3 days. There is a high probability that he will not have time. He decides that he will do everything in his power, because it is much better to have at least something than nothing. Suddenly taking the pencil in his hand, John discovers that part of his body is moving very quickly. He doesn't understand why he draws so quickly, because he hasn't noticed anything like this before. The main character's hand moves at great speed along the sheet from side to side. After just a couple of minutes, the costume drawing was ready. John now only has +1 in hand speed. It's hard to imagine what will happen next. He continues to work diligently with a pencil in order to quickly finish everything before submitting the report. The main character looks at his work with delight. Another drawing is ready. The guy says loudly and raises his pencil up. Sincere joy is visible on his face. Apparently, hand speed is very useful for John and will now clearly come in handy in his profession. A stack of books hits the surface noisily, creating a rumble and a characteristic knock. The main character brought a huge mountain of books for the girl, which she was very grateful for. He smiles widely, sparkling with happiness and pleasure. John decides to apologize to his coach and admits that he is a very useful thing. In vain, he slandered him. With such speed of hands, having time to prepare a report no longer sounds like an impossible task. Suddenly, a thought comes to the main character's head that distracts him from joy. He breaks his pencil, smiles sarcastically, and wonders why he is wasting time drawing now. The guy noisily puts the instrument on the table, getting ready to leave somewhere. John decides that he should get as many rejections as possible in order to gain a hand speed advantage. There are quite a lot of girls in this room who will only play to their advantage. The guy looks at the ladies one after another, cannot decide who to choose. John doesn't know what to say to a girl. Asking her to date right away might be indecent. But if he does not complete the report to the couple, the teacher will clearly not think about decency. The guy slams his fist furiously on the table and decides that he should take action now. After this, the main character smiles sarcastically and thinks that he will choose the prettier girl first. The weather is clear outside. The sun illuminates the roads and buildings. John comes to the library the next day, full of confidence in his own success. He discovers the first target and heads towards the girl peacefully reading. She looks irresistible, but just beautiful, that it's hard to take your eyes off her. The guy turns around sharply, as he is very worried, after which he decides that he should find another way to complete the task. Suddenly, the main character remembers the report awaiting him. A light bulb goes on in John's head and he comes up with an idea that will help in this situation. He approaches the table and begins to do something with his hands, turning his back. The guy draws a portrait of the girl and offers to go to dinner together. It seems to him that he has come up with an incredibly ingenious plan. Shy, the main character struggles with himself to approach the unsuspecting girl. He runs up to her and quietly puts the piece of paper on the table without saying anything. After that, he runs away and sits down at one of the tables, waiting for a response letter from her. John blushes deeply and sweats from worry and anticipation of the outcome. Suddenly, a folded piece of paper flies to him, which distracts him from the thoughts entering his head. He looks down. The answer is signed on the paper below. The girl says that if she were him, she would refuse dinners altogether. The main character does not know whether this answer is considered a refusal. There is no progress in the system, and therefore he decides to be more straightforward. John writes an offer to enter into a relationship on a piece of paper, after which he also quietly sneaks up to the girl to hand her the paper. The lady, squinting slightly, reads what is written on the sheet, trying to understand the sentence. After that, he gets up, begins to collect his things, takes his bag and textbooks. The main character hopes that she will approach him and the guy, and he will be able to get rejected, just like me. Dear YouTube viewer, I hope that you will hear my gratitude for your activity on my channel. Thank you all so much, guys. You are the best. Don't forget, leave a like and comment. But despite everything, the girl walked past him and headed in the other direction. She goes to the door and leaves the room without saying anything in response to the offer. John is very upset about this, because the girl could have told him off first and only then left. He believes that the intelligence of this system is like bread. Now the guy does not know what to do. The main character abruptly gets up from the table. He should think about changing tactics. He exhales heavily, sweats from stress, but still heads towards the next victim. The guy pats the girl on the shoulder, telling her that he thinks she is incredibly beautiful. As she turns around, she doesn't realize who this man is. And then, unable to think of anything better, John compliments the lady's mouth. Having overcome all the embarrassment and worries, the guy invites her to start a relationship. Feeling a little surprised, the girl asks him if they know each other. John says that this factor is not at all important, after which he repeats his proposal again. She apologizes and says she's already in a relationship, so it won't work out. The system counts the refusal, which the guy is very happy about. He finally succeeded. The main character begins to laugh hard and loudly, and the girl, in turn, does not understand what is going on. He apologizes for the trouble. The lady replies that there is nothing wrong with it. The scheme, of course, works, but it's better to act more delicately, so you shouldn't scare the girls. The main character approaches one of the girls in order to receive another refusal to improve his ability. He makes a compliment, comparing the lady to cherry blossoms in spring, after which he offers to get to know her better. She replies that she already has a boyfriend. Then John bows to her and apologizes for the trouble. The main character does not stop acting and approaches another girl to meet him, who also rejects him. John bows before her again, apologizes, and leaves to find a new subject. He again approaches another lady, complimenting her in an attempt to get acquainted. She replies that she is gay. The guy approaches another girl, saying that he gets goosebumps when he sees her. Suddenly it turns out that John is trying to meet not a lady but a guy. The main character lowers his head down, embarrassed by the awkwardness of the situation. It turned out quite awkward. Soon he reached the mark of 9 refusals, which he was certainly very happy about. It turns out that there is only 1 refusal left to receive, and the mission will be completed, and the hand speed will be increased. Suddenly, the main character stumbles upon the shoulder of some person and crashes into him. The dark-haired guy turns to him and tells him that he is his fan. John doesn't know who this young man is. He looks at him incredulously. He asks if the guy approached 9 girls. He saw with his own eyes 6 of his approaches, and also noticed that he approaches everyone, and he has no criteria. And the young man really likes the cheerful attitude, because the hero almost rejoices at every refusal. The guy smiles embarrassedly. This man doesn't know that he started this in order to get refusals. John says that he is alarmed by such attention to his person. He has not seen it before. The guy lowers his eyes, looks at the floor, and asks to let him introduce himself. He says he's a social commentator named Jeffrey, and then asks for an interview. John falls into shock. Surprise is visible on his face, and then asks if his interlocutor is a journalist. Jeffrey replies that he is a moderator of one of the popular groups, namely the BBC group. When the guy says that they have 300,000 subscribers, John recognizes his face and remembers the young man. The main character points his finger at the sky and shouts that there is a UFO in that direction. Jeffrey turns in that direction to see what is there, but unfortunately, when he turned back, John was no longer next to him. The dark-haired guy notices that he was just pimped out like a child. The main character runs up the stairs at great speed, trying to get out of the place as quickly as possible. The guy smiles widely and laughs loudly, saying that no normal person would give an interview to Jeffrey. As soon as he managed to tear himself away from the library, a man appears in front of him. This is a fair-haired girl who asks for directions to workshop number 2. After the hero suggested her side, she smiles sweetly and thanks him. The lady follows in the indicated direction, holding a lilac umbrella in her hands. Suddenly, the main character asks her to stop, because he also wanted to ask for directions. The girl stops and asks him where he's going. John asks her how to get to her heart, wanting to receive the last refusal. The girl with the lilac umbrella replies that she's already in a relationship, and the young man is waiting for her in the workshop. She says that the guy is a happy sweetheart, asks him to continue searching and not to despair. Finally, the hero completes the second stage and heads to the workshop to test his new skill. He quickly covers the entire distance to his destination in order to experience all the possibilities as quickly as possible. Near the workshop, there are many plaster sculptures, various figures, as well as easels with canvases. The main character stops among 3 easels to start creating. He moves his hand quickly and sharply, while holding a pencil and working on new paintings. And now, only the finishing touches remain to complete the work of art. The paintings are already ready. John's hands are very fast, although he has only completed the second stage. He can't even imagine what will happen when he completes all the tasks, and gets a plus of 16 in speed. To complete the third stage, the guy should think about a faster way to get rejected, because he needs to approach 90 girls in the shortest possible time. Suddenly, the phone vibrates and makes the distinctive notification sound in John's pants pocket. It turns out that this is his friend Noodles, who asks to wait for him in the workshop so that they can go to the dining room together. It's quite strange that the main character was surprised, because no one can write to him besides his acquaintance. Suddenly it dawns on him that he doesn't have to hit on every girl in person. He will be able to send mass mailings, which will save him many times. Of course, the likelihood of being ignored becomes higher, but it's still faster. The guy quickly sends the same message to many girls. Suddenly, messages arrive on their phones at the same time asking them to start dating. Suddenly, one moment comes to the main character. Something puts him into a stupor. It is not a fact that a refusal via messenger will be taken into account by the system. I should have sent a message to just a couple of girls first and seen what happened. John quickly swings his accelerated arms and thinks that he is quite stupid. But unfortunately, nothing can be fixed, so all we can do is wait. Soon notifications arrive on his phone. The phone reports this. The girls do not give a direct answer and try to get out of the refusal. Ideas don't work. The numbers in the system don't want to increase. The main character decides to go to the end, so he tells them that he did not lose his bet. And this is not a joke. They have no choice but to refuse. He sends all the messages and thinks that now no one will be able to get away. Reading all the messages, John looks at his phone in frustration and holds his hand to his chest. The numbers on the scoreboard are increasing. Refusals are being recorded at a new speed. The main character thanks the girls for their answers, because with their help, he can achieve his own goal. Reading all the messages, John thinks that all these refusals sound very cruel. Trying to recover from such insulting letters, he barely raises his head to look at something. He looks peacefully at the scoreboard with increasing numbers. The plan worked successfully. The main character imagines his social death. As he lies in a coffin with 100 white roses, he opens his eyes, returning to real life. Fantasizing, of course, is good. But today there is a lot more to do besides this. Anyway, John decides that the best option would be to apologize to the girls after refusing. Lying in a coffin again, the main character sends all his apology messages to his own victims. Noodles quickly runs towards his buddy, vigorously waving his arms and furiously shouting his name. The guy slowly turns his head towards his friend in order to understand what caused this reaction. Noodles attacks his friend, a fight breaks out, and the guys kick up dust from the floor. He squeezes Batten and asks why he confesses his love to his girlfriend. The guy is very disappointed, because he considered him a friend. John is shown a phone number with correspondence. He replies that he simply had the wrong address, and the message was not intended for her. Noodles feels intense rage. He doesn't understand why he didn't cancel the message if he made a mistake. The main character explains that he realized too late and cancellation was no longer possible. The guy receives a message. The girl reports that her friend also received a message from him. Probably Batten had the wrong address. A friend angrily asks him why more than 10 girls received his messages declaring his love. The main character is sweating from embarrassment and anxiety, trying to come up with an excuse. Noodles asks what's going on with his friend and how many girls he confessed his love to. John cannot tell him everything as it is, because it is quite difficult to believe. The friend continues to say that previously the hero was afraid of girls like fire, but now he writes himself, maybe he's crazy. Suddenly, the guy gets the idea to check whether refusals from male gender count, because initially he could have been gay. John decides that he should try it with his friend, in which case he will say that he is just joking. The guy lowers his head and begins to speak languidly and slowly, attracting attention to himself. He says that everything is exactly as his friend says. He is really crazy. But it's not just like that, it's love that turned John's head. The main character continues to say that he wrote to all these girls for a reason. The guy puts his hands on the shoulders of his friend, who looks at the current situation with confusion. John wrote to them so that everyone around him would think that he liked girls. He slowly moves closer to his friend's ear, and continues to whisper that his heart begins to beat faster at other moments. Noodles, with a frightened expression on his face, pushes his friend away, not understanding what happened to Batten. The guy admits that he was just pretending to be straight all the time and actually adores guys. The friend moves back, and at some point presses himself against the wall. He can no longer escape. John promises to be more affectionate with him than his girlfriend. The main character purses his lips and asks his friend to open his heart for him. Noodles quickly overcomes the obstacle made by his friend. He needs to escape. He bares his teeth and points a finger at John, shouting that he considered them friends, but now everything is ruined. The main character asks directly if they will kiss. Noodles shows him an obscene sign and sends him to hell. Looking at his scoreboard with numbers, the guy understands that this refusal was also counted, and now he has more options to earn points. Noodles doesn't understand whether he really is a representative of a non-traditional orientation, and asks not to disappoint him. John hugs his friend and says that if he doesn't want to kiss him, then they won't. They will remain friends. The guy admits that it was all just a prank. Then the friend is outraged by this. He attacks the main character and asks him to tell him what is happening to his friend lately. The hero explains that Noodles himself said to spread the net, so he did it to find the girl. John grabs his friend and asks him if he's disappointed in this and probably wanted his friend to be in love with him. He says that the joke is over and offers to treat him to lunch as an apology. Noodles says that considering the amount of food, he almost stopped being offended by him today. John decides that if rejections from guys count too, then he should make 100 at their expense. Chewing another delicacy, a friend asks the main character why he didn't even touch the food. Ignoring him, the guy sits on the phone and smiles maliciously, realizing that now he can cope with his mission much easier. Noodles snatches the phone from his hands, making a displeased face that his friend is not paying attention to him. Holding the gadget in his hands, he asks if his friend is spreading his networks in the messenger again. John aggressively tells him that he wants him to sit down and give him his phone back. Despite everything, Noodles looks at the burning screen of the gadget and sees a correspondence with the guy, which causes him to be shocked. The friend throws the phone aside and loudly asks the friend if he offers intimacy to men. People in the establishment turn around at these words. Noodles is very worried and asks his friend if he is gay or just stupid. John smiles awkwardly and says that he just lost his bet and now he needs to get 100 refusals. A friend says that this is not like him and it's hard to believe that this is possible. The main character boasts that he is already close to his goal. Noodles asks if he is afraid to confess to so many people. He replies that he is not scared at all, especially since no one reciprocated. The guy says that tomorrow he needs to go to the hated teacher again and asks his friend if he has prepared a report. John receives more and more refusals. The numbers in his table grow. He answers that it is a work in progress. The number reaches 100, and now the main character gets plus 16 to his hand speed. Now, for him, preparing a report will be the easiest task because his hands move at a gigantic speed. The main character enters the workshop, taking with him a huge stack of papers in order to complete the entire work plan. John begins to remember all the dynasties of his family in order to help himself complete all the impossible work. Confidence and determination are visible on his face. The guy is confident in his own abilities and decides to start. He picks up some of the prepared papers to bring all his plans to life. The guy, with a quick movement of his hand, scatters all the sheets of paper through the air. The main character takes 2 pencils in one hand and decides that by increasing the number, he will also increase the speed. John jumps into the air towards the flying sheets, swinging his slate friends in their direction. He lists names and fills more and more paper with drawings every second. The main character depicts people popular in ancient times in their traditional costumes. Suddenly, the guy turns around and notices one of the sheets. With a grin on his face, he reaches his hand towards it. He grabs the paper with the suit's design on it, pulling it back towards him and returning it to its place. It depicts a luxurious girl in a festive outfit. Just as all the drawings for the report are ready, John lands on the ground. The leaves slowly fall, slightly balancing in the air and staggering. They lie randomly on the floor. Some are upside down, some are on the right side. The guy raises his hands up, rejoicing and exulting at the end of the work, which took much more time without his abilities. Plus 16 to hand speed can really work wonders. John quickly dealt with the Chinese part of the report, but he had not even started on foreign assignments. It would be desirable to cover Europe, ancient Egypt, India, and Japan. The time is already approaching 10 in the evening, and the couple starts at 8 in the morning. The main character clenches his hand into a fist and decides that he needs to push harder in order to finish what he started. The sun disappears behind the horizon, turning the sky pink and orange. Students go about their business. Some need to visit classes. Others came extra. John enters the academy building. The guy thinks that his finest hour will come very soon. His friend suddenly appears behind the main character, frightening him with a sharp movement and scream. Noodles asks where John was all night. His friend was worried that he didn't make a report and decided to commit suicide. The main character smiles widely and says that his friend has never been so mistaken. He approaches his friend and says that very soon he will be able to see and understand everything for himself. Julia orders everyone to take their seats, then asks the guys why they are smiling so suspiciously. The guys immediately calm down and take on neutral facial expressions, not daring to say a word more. The teacher asks his student, who promises to show a report in this class, to come up to her. The main character immediately jumps up from his seat and happily heads towards her. Noodles does not understand this joy. John thinks that these mere mortals do not even suspect that very soon they will witness a real miracle. He assumes that their conversation will be about Julia's task for the guy. Awkwardly, the guy corrects himself and says that he was preparing a report, while at the same time unfastening his backpack in order to get his work. The teacher closes his eyes and explains that the report will be discussed a little later, but for now there are other topics for discussion. Julia hands him the phone and asks him to read this message first in front of everyone. The main character picks up the gadget and, with great surprise on his face, discovers his message, which he sent to absolutely everyone. Now he realizes that yesterday he also sent this message to his teacher. Julia tells him that she has always considered him a decent student, but since he can afford to treat teachers this way, he will have to teach him a lesson. She asks John to read out loud the message he wrote. The guy blushes and wants to come up with an excuse. The teacher asks if he wanted to distract her attention from the report with this message. Everyone in the office is discussing the fact that they also received a confession from the main character. Noodles, hearing this, falls into shock. He thinks that his friend has gone crazy, as he assumed. The girls are discussing yesterday's message from their friend, if he even sent it to a witch. Then the confession must have come to all the girls they know. The guys also discuss the incident, thinking that the hero only confessed to the guys. Some laugh when they learn about these details, not expecting this from John. Some students think that the guy deserves it, hoping that the teacher will punish him to the fullest. Julia asks to confess if the main character did not complete the report, and these tricks should only be performed on his girlfriends. She continues to say that the punishment will serve as an example for others, because for failure to comply with the report, something awaits him. John dumps a stack of sheets of sketches on the table and asks to look at them, because everything is ready. The teacher is very surprised by what she heard. She begins to leaf through the sketches of costumes and does not understand how this is possible. The office begins to fill with noise with discussions about the behavior of the main character. Julia is surprised that John completed everything, and the drawings were done to a very high standard. There are at least 500 sheets of paper on the table. Even the Celestials couldn't have drawn them in 3 days. She assumes that someone obviously helped the guy. The teacher says that if the guy did it himself, then he needs to defend this report in front of everyone. The main character, with a confident expression on his face, agrees to do this, because he knows that this action will not cause him any difficulties. He begins to defend his project, first talking about Chinese outfits. A distinctive feature of women's outfits during a certain dynasty was that the skirt, dress, and mantle were one whole. The length of the sleeves was about 3/4 of the length of the arms. Next, John begins to talk about foreign outfits in medieval Europe. Monotonous clothing prevailed. Women wore dresses in black, white, or gray. The teacher and friend of the main character look at the performance with their mouths open and do not understand when he managed to do everything. Julia is perplexed why the guy confessed his love to her, then apparently she underestimated the power of the hormonal surge in boys his age. Students are surprised by the success and excellent performance of their classmate. They praise him. With faces of delight and surprise, the guys begin to actively clap for Jonah. The teacher also sits with some delight the main character, finishing his speech, thanks everyone for their attention. The woman clears her throat and admits that the guy performed well, asking him to return to his place. John lowers his eyes, and since he is standing in front of everyone, he would like to explain about the messages. Julia is worried and hopes that the guy won't ask for her hand in marriage, like in snotty melodramas. He says that he just lost his bet, so most likely all his classmates, including the guys, received a message with a declaration of love. The teacher exhales with relief, lowering his eyes and smiling slightly. Julia says that she considers John a promising guy and also asks him not to get involved in such disputes anymore. He bowed low and asks to forgive him, promising to make amends to her. The long-awaited bell rings, people slowly pack their things into bags and get up from their seats. The main character doesn't care about this. He sits on his phone, doing something very important, from which he shouldn't be distracted. A friend comes up behind him and says that his friend shocked everyone today, and then asks how he managed to do everything. Without looking away from his device, John replies that his circles under his eyes speak for themselves. Noodles shakes his face, asking if his friend has made a deal with the devil. The main character says that he already has a headache from these interrogations. Now he needs to make amends to the guys. The friend was surprised by what he heard, and looks at the phone and asks what he will do to make this happen. He decides that the most correct and best option would be to send red envelopes in which he could put any amount from his wallet. Noodles is surprised by the money he sent, commenting on his friend's generosity. Suddenly, another notification comes that a new task has been created called a spender. To complete the task, you need to spend about 1 million. John was shocked by this amount. After completing the task, the achievement will be awarded and added, +1 to luck. The main character screams with indignation. Perhaps this is some kind of mistake. Upon completion of the task, he will have +1 for luck, and for each stage he will only be given points. It is not known what they will be good for. John looks disappointed at the fact that only 3,000 were spent, and a lot more resources are required to complete the task. He's very aggressive, shows an obscene sign to the table, and says that the system can go to hell with such tasks. The main character feels many emotions at once: disappointment, anger, and misunderstanding. His friend has been watching him from the side all this time. He asks what happened to his acceptance. The guy screams and says that he will hit Noodles in the face from the rush of emotions. Priyatya covers his friend's mouth, not allowing him to say another word. Noodles says that he got one of his friend's envelopes and then invites him to lunch. John smiles joyfully and draws attention to the fact that no one pulled the trigger on his friend, and he suggested it himself. The main character thinks that he should forget about the system for now, because now it is much more important to go and refresh himself. It has long been dark outside. Stars are visible in the clear sky. There is no light on in any window. Everyone is probably already going to bed. John is sitting at the computer, holding a packet of chips in his hands, looking at something in it. If he does not complete this task, it is unknown whether the system will issue the next one. If it doesn't work out, then for the rest of his life, this task will hang on him. 1 million in exchange for +1 for luck. It's not clear whether it's worth it. Fortunately, the guy was extremely pleased with improving his hand speed. Improving his luck could also be useful. But the question of where to get so much money remains open. The main character understands that if he does something, his mother will under no circumstances spare him. There is a huge pile of food on the table, a lot of chips, marmalade, drinks, and various sweets. You should act according to the situation. If within a couple of weeks the system does not issue another task, then John will return to solving this problem again. Noodles into the room, pokes his friend's phone. Now his friend is a celebrity. It turns out that in the last couple of days, he not only sent out a message with declarations of love, but also did it live in the library. With each approach, the guy tried a new phrase, and if he refused, he didn't blush, didn't lose his mood, and immediately went to the next girl. With misunderstanding, the main character looks at the phone and asks what they are talking about. It turns out that Jeffrey wrote an article on the internet about this case. John carefully examines the article and the site on which it is written to find at least one mention of it. Having found no information, he exhales noisily and says that the journalist did not have any information about him. After that, the guy gives the phone to his friend and says that he has nothing to do with it, because the name is not written and there is no photograph. The main character feignedly looks to the side and pretends that he knows nothing about this situation. Noodles smiles widely and asks if he wants to say that it's just a coincidence because you can't mark the facts that he sent 100 declarations of love. John breaks out in a cold sweat because he was declassified, which he did not really want. If Noodles guessed it, then the rest of my classmates will also understand what's what. A friend calms him down by saying that even if it was him, he has already explained everything and made amends financially. He scrolls through comment after comment on his phone and says people are very insensitive. John turns to him, trying to find out what he means. Noodles hides his gadget behind his back and pretends that nothing happened. In order to distract from the current situation, the guy offers to play a mobile game. The main character notes that it would be more interesting for him to watch anime. His friend agrees with him. The clock shows 5:30 in the morning. It is still completely dark outside and most people are in their beds. All night, John read angry comments from people under this article. Many people insulted him. Out of resentment, he closes his eyes, trying to calm down and not think about bad things. He understands that it all comes down to just one thing, namely the guy's excess weight. Getting out of bed, the main character realizes that he does not want to continue giving people a reason to make fun of him. First of all, he goes to the bathroom, coats his toothbrush with toothpaste and starts brushing his teeth. After that, he puts on his shoes and puts on his gray windbreaker, most likely planning to head outside. The main character ties a red ribbon on his head and announces that he plans to lose weight. He immediately noisily throws all the most delicious foods, soda, marmalade, chips into the trash can. His friend wakes up from the roar, opens one eye and tries to understand what happened. The friend gets up and asks where his neighbor went because it's still dark outside. John replies that he's going to run. Noodles assumes he's still asleep, so he goes back to his bed. The main character has long wanted to lose weight and start running, but he never got around to taking real action until his death. He thought that he would start tomorrow or on Monday. But since life gave him another chance, he should take full advantage of it. John very enthusiastically begins his run, slowing down and slowing down. It seems to him that he is about to die again. After coming to a complete stop, he noisily falls to the ground, exhausted from running, but the distance is only 100 meters. Lying on the ground, he says that the experiment failed. He is already too fat. Now for him, running is something beyond the pale. The girl appears in front of him, lending a helping hand and asking if everything is okay. The main character raises his head, looking embarrassed at the lady in front of him. He replies that he feels great now. The girl helps him get up. John asks if the lady also went for a run. She says that she runs every day. The main character tells a new acquaintance that he went out for a run today for the first time. The girl grabs him and says that he continued in the same spirit. She supports the guy. The main thing is just to start and take the first step, and then it will be easier. The lady says goodbye to her new friend and tells him not to give up. He waves his hand after him and pledges not to end his training today. The main character believes that this girl is just an angel. He really liked her. John clenches his hand into a fist and promises himself that he will not give up under any circumstances. He begins to run forward. Suddenly, a new task called a walker appears before his eyes. The guy is very happy about the discovery of a new task. Now he won't have to spend $1 million. The main character closes his eyes and slowly exhales air, feeling calm and calm. To complete the task, you need to travel 10,000 kilometers. For completing the mission, you will be awarded +10 to strength, +10 to speed, and +10 to endurance. John realizes that the length of China from west to east is 4,500 kilometers, and he needs to cover this distance twice. The main character is simply shocked. Realizing these numbers, it seems to him that it is simply impossible to do this. After all, today he ran only a few hundred meters and almost died. Even if the guy regains his shape in the very near future and starts running 3 kilometers a day, it will take him about 10 years to complete the task. John remembers all the missions the system gave him, trying to establish communication. He is very outraged by all the current circumstances and says that she is simply mocking him. Suddenly a sign appears in front of him, saying that if you don't give up, everything will come. The main character at first does not understand the meaning, then decides that there is clearly something in this. Suddenly, one important truth comes to John. This quote is the key to the answer. Only after the guy tried to start running. This task was revealed to him if he continues to try and does not give up. Then no one knows what else the system can surprise. Nothing in this world is given for nothing. If a person does not strive for anything, and does not make any attempts, then why would heaven help him? It's better to take action right now than to sit and whine without achieving anything. Suddenly, John notices that there are as many as 15 stages in this task. This is even better if the guy cannot complete the mission to the end. He will still receive rewards and level up after completing each stage. The more his endurance, strength, and speed improve, the easier and faster he will be able to complete the next stages. The main character notices an item called running equipment. He decides to find out what it means. Having opened this section, many items appear in front of him that can be useful when running, each of which gives a certain number of points. After this, the main character realizes why these glasses were needed after all. Now he only has 111 points, and you can use them to buy some things. John decides that the most important thing for him right now would be sneakers, so he clicks on them. Many characteristics of this type of shoe appear in front of him. The guy does not understand anything, but madly admires everything. It also comes with a +1 for speed. This is exactly what the guy needs to complete all tasks as quickly as possible. Suddenly, he realizes that his knees hurt like crazy. It is unknown how the hero could damage them after running only a couple of 100 meters. These sneakers are the best fit for John. Knee protection and a +1 for speed will solve half the problems. Without hesitating for a second, the main character presses the buy button. Various sparks hover near him, and surprise at what he sees is visible on the guy's face. Suddenly, he decides to look around to see if anyone is nearby. Having checked everything, John calmly exhales and rejoices, because otherwise he could have become another hero of some local blog. He looks at his palms and is surprised at the size of the sneakers he just bought. Apparently this is another joke of this system. The sneakers already seemed ideal to the guy. Suddenly blue sparks appear in front of him and envelop his legs. Although the new thing looks almost the same as the previous pair, the feeling is completely different. Even all the sweat had been absorbed somewhere. It was like they had put pillows on John's feet. The main character smiles contentedly, thinking that he is now incredibly comfortable. He decides that he should walk a little to test the functionality of his new pair of shoes. John sees the distance, usage time, stride length, and calories. This really surprises the guy. The main character decides that now he can run the whole 1 kilometer. It accelerates and begins its movement, control, and measurement processes are launched. The system has detected critical errors in the wearer's movements and asks whether forced adjustments should be applied. Without a moment's doubt, the main character agrees to the forced corrections. The system applies forced adjustments to the wearer's movements. He begins to move unnaturally. After the changes, the guy feels like his legs are a little stiff. Although this is not entirely comfortable, he already feels a noticeable reduction in the load on his knees. The speed increases noticeably. The wearer of the new sneakers reaches the mark of 500 meters. Running 800 meters, the main character becomes noticeably more difficult to breathe. He slowly exhales air and repeatedly. The guy decides that he can't do it anymore, even though he now has the miracle of sneakers. But his body is not yet ready for such loads. Exhausted from running, he decides that training will be over for the day. Suddenly, John remembers the words of his new acquaintance, after which he realizes that he won't give up so easily. Because if he continues to stay in his comfort zone, then girls like her will remain out of reach. The guy set a goal to run 1 kilometer, which means nothing will stop him. The sneakers report that the wearer ran 1 kilometer. The route took 20 minutes, and about 500 calories were burned, approximately equal to 2 chicken wings. John learns that after completing a goal, his soul feels very good. He had not noticed this before. The time is approaching 6 o'clock in the evening. Julia relieves everyone from classes. Noodles tells his friend that he will never in his life guess what he dreamed about. The guy suggests that the dream could have been a mobile game. A friend denies the assumption and says that he dreamed that Batten got up for a run. This sounds like the beginning of a joke. The main character says that it was all not a dream at all, because he really went outside this morning. The teacher interrupts them and calls John's name so that he pays attention to her. He looks at her with confusion and asks what Julia wants. The woman offers him lunch. Today's dinner will be at her expense. Noodles goes into shock. The witch invited his friend to dinner. He couldn't have heard wrong. The main character smiles widely, agreeing to go to lunch with the teacher. Students sitting in the audience begin to whisper after hearing this dialogue. The guy returns to the hostel at 15 minutes past 12. Noodles looks at his friend with suspicion. He came in tired and was all sweaty. The friend said nothing, looked exhausted, and then immediately went to the shower. Although his version sounds too exotic, apparently, it is not so far from the truth. The guy knows that their witch is completely fucked up. He's not even surprised that she has such a perverted taste in guys. Coming out of the bathroom, John wrapped towels around his waist. But suddenly something distracted his attention. Noodles jumps on him, asking him to tell the absolute truth after his question. He asks his friend if they had something with their common teacher. The main character, with a sharp movement, removes his friend's hand from his shoulder. With no place left for him to rest on, the noodle begins to fall right onto his friend. Their faces are very close to each other, which makes both of them incredibly shy and embarrassed. It was at this moment that a guy named Edward, who is their common neighbor, returns to their room. Seeing this, he apologizes, assuming that he disturbed the guys and is about to leave the room. Noodles tells Edward that he will explain everything right away. In fact, everything is not at all as it might seem. The guy hugs his friend and says that love does not have a specific gender. If it exists, then it has the right to exist. He thinks that they should be shy, they just need to be themselves. Edward is even happy for his friends. Out of aggression, John grabs his neighbor by the collar and asks him to listen to them and not interrupt. Noodles talks about all his assumptions about the witch and his friend. He wanted to ask him about what happened, but his neighbor came in. The main character understands how ambiguous everything he says sounds, so he simply shows his class. Edward is trying to comprehend everything the guys just said, how Batten could have met their teacher. He is completely shocked, because he thought that his friends were just gays, but here it turns out that a completely different situation has developed. John sighs and says that his friends don't understand anything, because the meeting turned out differently. In fact, Julia called him just to eat. She wanted to make amends for being biased and unreasonably accusing him of being careless. She really liked her report and decided to show him a book that required illustrations. The guys cross their arms over their chests and say they don't believe a word. With a straight face, John hands his acquaintances a book called The Thousand-Year Dream. The guys are shocked when they see the book, because this is a new novel by a very popular author. Edward says that John has no idea how cool this is. The writer is a modern goddess of novels. He adores her. Noodles adds that he heard that she has already dismissed a bunch of artists. She doesn't like anyone. If he gets in, then his friend won't have time to play mobile games with him. The main character thinks that this is a great opportunity, and he would like to try to do something useful during his extracurricular time. He can't play games all the time. A friend asks him to confess what kind of relationship he has with the teacher on the one hand. She treats him more strictly than the others. On the other, she cares about him. The guy explains that they don't have any special relationship. It's just that his mother was her teacher. So he's known Julia since childhood. Edward is surprised that John's mother was a witch's teacher. It turns out that she is also a difficult woman. Maybe he is the son of a successful artist. And again, the guys don't know what they came up with. He's just an ordinary fat guy. Noodles says that he shouldn't slander himself if he loses a little weight. He'll be able to star in cool films. John smiles widely and says he thinks so too, clenching his hand into a fist. That's why he decided to run every day in the mornings and evenings. Even today after dinner, he ran 2 kilometers, which is why he came back sweaty and tired. The friend doesn't believe that this is true, because it's hard to expect something like that from John. The guy shows his friends his phone with an activity log, where it says that he ran 3.5 kilometers today. Noodles asks him if he's upset because of the comments. He shouldn't take it to heart. The main character asks not to worry about him. He runs carefully. It would not hurt him to lose weight. And he says goodbye to his friends and says that he needs to go to bed quickly because tomorrow he will go jogging again. The guy decides that he will prove to everyone that he is capable of much, and will also achieve his goal no matter what. In a dream, the main character is running a relay race, facing many obstacles. He jumps over each of them. The obstacles are written with insults and words that John was called. Having reached the end of the relay and having passed all the tests, he stops in place, breathing heavily. At the end of the road, he meets the angel he has dreamed of for so long. The girl holds out her hand to him and is glad that he has finally caught up with her. Suddenly, the guy is woken up by the alarm clock. He needs to get up in order to go for another run. The main character gets up, realizing that it was just a dream, but is not upset at all. Last night, when the guy went outside, he didn't see the girl at the stadium. He brushes his teeth, gets dressed, and gets ready to go out in the hope that he will see her today. Hearing the front door close, Noodles opens his eyes slightly. Suddenly, he realizes that his friend is up running again so early. Arriving at the stadium, John realizes that apparently the girl did not come to train today again. On the other hand, perhaps this is for the best. The guy's form does not allow her to be impressed yet. It's better to meet her when the main character becomes thinner so that her jaw drops. The system reports that critical errors have been identified, offers to make forced adjustments. John says that he has already understood how to place his foot and bend his knees. He decides that he will control his movements. The program agrees with him. Now, no critical errors have been found. The guy should continue moving. The main character feels better because now he copes with everything himself. The system reports that the hero ran 2 kilometers. The route took 20 minutes. The average time to cover 1 kilometer is 13 minutes. John realizes that he broke his yesterday's record. Now he has the strength for the 3rd kilometer. Suddenly, a silhouette runs past the main character and he slows down. This is the girl he saw yesterday. She greets him and is happy to meet him. She says that the guy is progressing very quickly. She barely managed to recognize him. The girl says that every day he runs better and better. John explains that today it is much easier for him to run than yesterday. She asks if the guy played professional sports before he gained weight. After all, he holds his body flawlessly and places his feet just like an athlete. Deep down, the main character is incredibly happy because he has watched many videos on the internet about how to run. He's incredibly happy and glad that the girl he likes praises him. Yesterday, John looked tired after only running 200 meters, and today he continues to run after 2 kilometers. She has never seen people who progress so quickly. The main character wants to ask her some question without having time to finish. The girl asks him to continue in the same spirit, but she should speed up. The guy wanted to know her name, because these 2 days he never managed to ask this question. He would also like to catch up with her and ask her, but she rushes like the wind. John is not yet in the shape and condition to be able to catch up with the girl. 1 circle is equal to 500 meters. He just needs to wait for her in place, and very soon the girl will run past him. Then he will be able to talk to her. Trying to catch his breath, the guy again misses the girl. She silently runs past him. Just standing still and waiting for her is too humiliating. You need to keep moving. The sneakers indicate that the guy ran 3 kilometers, and the time taken was about 33 minutes. John is breathing heavily. His goal for today has already been accomplished, but he would like to talk to the lady. He decides that for now he should just walk. The girl will probably do some stretching afterwards, and then he'll be able to catch her there. Suddenly, a white cord flies near his head, almost hitting his face. John lifts his head up, noticing a quadcopter in the air with some paper attached. Suddenly, the piece of paper opens. 2 names flaunt on it, namely Daniel and Kathleen, with a heart drawn between the inscriptions. The main character, seeing this, falls into a slight shock of surprise. He could not even think that this would happen today. A blonde guy approaches the girl and says that today is their holiday. He asks her to accept flowers and his love. John finally learned the heroine's name, although not quite in the way he wanted. It turns out that the girl already has a very cool boyfriend. He has nothing to catch. With his head down, the main character follows towards the house, but suddenly notices a shadow on the ground. Noodles appears in front of him. He now understands the reason for his sudden changes. Irritated, John asks his friend why he came here so early. He replies that he wanted to see if the guy was really running around here. As it turned out, the friend comes here just to look at the beauty. This girl is one of the most beautiful ladies in their academy, who studies at the Faculty of Traditional Painting. The main character sighs and says that he knew nothing about this girl before. In any case, she has a boyfriend. He has nothing to catch here. A friend puts his hand on a friend's shoulder and says that he gave up too early, because nothing is clear in their situation yet. John does not understand what is being said, and then sharply turns in the direction from which he so wanted to escape. He sees a blonde guy named Daniel squatting and crying with a crumpled bouquet lying next to him. The main character blossoms. He is incredibly happy when he learns that the girl is free. Noodles says he should share some gossip with his friend. The rejected guy's name is Daniel. He is one of the main majors at the academy. The guy has been chasing the girl who interested John so much for a whole year. But throughout all this time, she rejected him and never agreed to any of the proposals. The guy asks his friend not to despair. He will definitely succeed. The main character thinks that he has a good chance, but he just needs to lose weight. He comes to the workshop on Saturday. The guy is reading a book, thinking and thinking about many things in his head. If he loses weight, he will be able to compete for girls' hearts even with majors. John decides that he needs to stop fantasizing and start illustrating the novel. And the mention of his name as the artist of a popular novel should also give him some weight. The main character is kind, active, smart, and carries her cute pet with her everywhere. He repeats this over and over again, trying to gather his thoughts and imagine how it should look on the sheet. Suddenly, the hero discovers that his own hand drew Kathleen. Embarrassed, the guy realizes that this style would suit the girl very much. Suddenly, a man enters the room, commenting that their meetings are a coincidence. John begins to worry greatly when he sees Kathleen. He did not expect her to come right now. She says that she also decided to draw, and her friend is again in the workshop. The main character says that they walk on the same paths, but the girl does not pay attention to this. She is interested in work. Suddenly, John realizes that the picture is of Kathleen, and this looks rather strange on his part. He covers himself with a sheet of paper and says that he didn't draw her. This is the main character of the short story, and he based it not on her, but on another girl. Kathleen giggles and says she means the rabbit. It looks just like a living one. The main character, trying to calm down from his worries, thanks her for the compliment. Inside himself, he thinks that he said complete nonsense. He has already received 100 refusals from girls and boys, but for some reason, he continues to be nervous in front of her. The guys sit next to each other, starting to create their works. The guy mixes different colors on his palette. thinks that it is better for him to remain silent before he says another stupid thing. After some time, he finishes illustrating the novel. Another task has been unlocked, and called Illustrator. You need to draw 1,000 illustrations. John is very happy, because this task is right for him, given his hand speed. Completing these 4 stages will not be difficult. He decides to see what additional items he can buy. It turns out that there is only a pen here that costs 100 points. The main character presses the button, deciding to read more about this subject. The pen can be used as a pencil, watercolor, markers, colored pencils, and much more. The modes can be changed with one click. This pen covers any illustrator's needs, which is probably why there is nothing else here in terms of usefulness. This item will be no worse than sneakers. The main character thinks that he only has 2 glasses, so shopping is postponed. He is suddenly distracted by Kathleen, who waves her hand in front of his face and asks if everything is okay. John glances at her as he walks out of his table and item store. He says that he was just thoughtful, but everything is quite fine. The lady says that she needs to go do her homework and says that she will not disturb him. The guy awkwardly says goodbye to the girl and waves after her. She collects her things in a bag, turns towards the door, and heads out. John thinks that the girl approached him on her own. It was a great opportunity to talk to her. Well, what will be the use of losing weight if the guy continues to not take advantage of such chances? You need to be nicer. He has plus 16 to hand speed. It's easy for him to impress any person. But if you sketch out a draft and ask her for advice, then you can add her as a friend. The guy makes a lot of different illustrations. The first stage of the task is completed. The main character is happy that he completed both tasks very quickly. John imagines the girl admiring his skills and asking him to be added as a friend. After this, the guy will say that knowledge is important and needs to be shared. This is his motto in life. Shy with slow steps, he approaches the girl from behind. Catherine says goodbye to her subscribers and says that she is waiting for them on the next broadcasts. She thanks people for their support, says goodbye to them, and receives many compliments. John asks her if she streams. The girl says that she needs to earn a living somehow. She asks her friend how long he has been standing behind her, because she did not notice how he approached. The main character asks to evaluate a couple of his sketches. Perhaps the girl can give advice on how to improve them. She says she does traditional painting and doesn't know anything about comics. The guy catches himself thinking that Kathleen is not going at all according to the script in his head. The girl begins to give comments about the work. She suggests that he modify the limbs of the male character if he needs to be made more sharp and assertive. Then he can paint over his limbs with ink. John thinks about what was said. It is quite possible to work with this. He asks the girl to give her a brush in order to show his abilities in front of her. A little ink, and the main character of the story began to play completely differently. John decides to refine the female characters as well, actively waving his brush and ink. The girl's eyes widen in surprise. She's never seen such speed. Kathleen says the guy is very fast. John scratches his head and says it's no problem. He catches himself thinking that he finally impressed the lady and didn't even mumble his answer. The girl says that with such talents, he should record the streams himself. The main character receives another task called Master of Streams. He needs to get 100 million views on broadcasts. He is very surprised by this because he recently received a new task, and here he came across another one. Previously, all tasks were opened after John himself began to complete them, and only Kathleen's suggestion was enough to open the last task. When completed, he is given a bunch of points, and after completing all the stages, he will get more, plus 15 to his charm. This is what he wants most. The main character begins to laugh out loud, joyfully imagining what his life could look like in the future. The girl also supports the guy, laughing with him, and then asks him if she said something stupid. John asks himself why he started laughing, hoping that the girl won't take him for some kind of crazy person. Trying to rectify the situation, he lowers his eyes and says that the idea of making broadcasts seems so cool to the guy that he laughed with delight. The girl says that she was glad to help with advice. Today, she still has a lot of things to do, so she needs to leave. Suddenly, John asks her to stop. She clarifies what's the matter. The guy lowers his eyes down, is very worried, blushes. He collects his thoughts. The main character says that he knows nothing about streaming and offers to have dinner together so that Kathleen will tell him about it. She replies that she wouldn't mind consulting him, but she won't be able to do it today, since a meeting is already scheduled. John falls into a slight stupor, trying to come up with something else in order to somehow contact the girl in the future. He asks her if she can add him as a friend on a social network. After this, the main character lowers his eyes and blushes with embarrassment, worrying that the lady may refuse. But despite all his doubts, Kathleen hands her friend the phone and asks him to scan the code. The guy smiles broadly and takes out his gadget to do what she asked. Suddenly, the phone disappears from the hands of the main character. Someone comments that everything will not happen so quickly. John looks into his hand and does not find the gadget in it, does not understand how it could be snatched. This is a fair-haired guy. He is interested in how a hickey like John cannot have knowledge on this topic. Kathleen asks the guy to stop behaving like this and return her friend's phone. The guy shows the girl the apps on the main character's phone. There are 5 applications on the screen with the word stream. The girl replies that she understands everything and asks to return the phone to the guy. He asks what he thinks about himself. A pig is not a swan's friend. The main character replies that he just wanted to add his friend as a friend. The blonde guy shouts that it would be better if he added sports to his life. They don't need such friends. Kathleen sighs resignedly and asks her friend to shut up, holding his arm. John looks after them doomedly. Apparently nothing worked out. The weather outside is clear and hot. The sun hangs high in the sky. The main character trains at the stadium according to his own schedule in order to achieve his goal. Yes, he wanted to cheat a little, but he still didn't deserve such an attitude. In a past life, the guy really lived like a pig. It's hard to argue with that. Thinking about this, he looks down at his stomach with an upset expression. After rebirth, the main character began to work hard on himself, but the results are not very noticeable yet. If John wants others to look at him with different eyes, then he must change even more. The first stage of the task, called the Walker, is completed. The reward is 1 point and a bonus to stamina. The guy smiles and promises himself that he will definitely achieve his dream. John is happy because he has already completed the first stage and his endurance has increased. In a previous life, the guy could not have dreamed of such rapid growth. The system was right. If you don't give up, you can achieve a lot. Now the task of running 10,000 kilometers no longer seems impossible. The main character once again imagines this quote and looks up with inspiration. He still has energy left for a couple of laps, so he doesn't stop trying. Apparently, this is the result of increased endurance. Accumulated fatigue disappeared as if by hand. Given the increase in average speed and endurance, the guy could run 5 to 7 kilometers in the morning and evening. The main character should estimate priority tasks in order to maximize his efficiency. The Walker task should be placed at the very bottom to complete it. The guy just needs to run every day. And over time, speed, strength, and endurance will increase. Improving these properties, in turn, will allow the illustrator to complete the task faster. That evening, John decided to come to the workshop to work on the broadcast. For a drawing-themed stream, the best option is the 8th station. It is quite popular among fans of games, comics, and cartoons. The main character presses the start button and decides it's time to start. He is not sure that it would be interesting for the audience to see him on the first stage. It would most likely be helpful to start with something that was recognizable to a large number of people. The guy secures his phone and decides to draw what he does best. The main character also prepares his equipment for drawing. Smiling with excitement, John decides he should start broadcasting. Before the start of the stream, the guy sends out an invitation to all his groups so as not to broadcast in vain. Suddenly, having started the stream, he notices that a lot of viewers have come. People send Batten gifts for real money. He thinks that it was not in vain that he sent them gifts in his time. John thanks people for their compliments and gifts and points the camera at the canvas without showing his face. People send messages one after another. Some are negative, while others, on the contrary, are trying to support him. Many people also discuss the drawing, laughing at the girl and admiring her. Subscribers try to guess who the main character is drawing, finally guessing. John adds some details with quick hand movements. And that's it. In the end, his sketch is completed. The guy is waiting for the reaction of his viewers. Suddenly, a lot of donations with money begin to arrive on his phone. The guy continues to work hard and thinks about what his subscribers haven't even seen yet. Plus 16 to his hand speed. In a split second, the main character completes his picture in color, adding details. Many people on the other side of the screen are sitting with their mouths open in shock at what they just saw. People enthusiastically send money to the guy's account, praise his talents, and admire the speed of his work. John smiles widely, delighted at this success, which is pretty good for a first time. He scratches his head at his temple with a pencil and thinks about what else he could draw in order to impress the audience even more. The main character thinks that it took a lot of time for people to recognize the girl, so it's worth drawing someone more recognizable. He decides that if the first character was associated with ice, then drawing a second fire person would be a great idea. Suddenly, the guy remembers that an online session on a certain comic book character was announced. The main character grins evilly. A great idea comes to him. He puts another sheet on the easel, thinking about how soon the audience will recognize the new character. John picks up a pencil, starting to work on a sketch of his next work. People watching the stream try to guess who is depicted on the piece of paper, guessing who it might be. The main character clarifies the details. The audience recognizes some fragments of the drawing, but does not understand who is depicted in it. Viewers in unison start writing outrageous messages towards John because he portrayed a male character as a female character, which is not entirely satisfactory to people. The main character reads his friend's comment, where he reports that fans treat the characters with great trepidation, and the guy took it and turned everything around. John stands up from his seat, looking intently at the screen of his phone. It turns out that only a couple of commentators are setting this negative tone. A guy writes in a general chat with a couple of his friends, asking to protect him in the chat. Then one of them asks for moderator rights in order to clean up the inappropriate ones. The main character thinks that now his friend will do the comments, and his job will be to draw. A moderator with the nickname Thick-Skinned explains in the chat what Batten asked the audience to convey. After this, he sends many gifts for the streamer and continues to do his own thing. John smiles contentedly after seeing the cranky spectators banned by Pachyderm. Suddenly, his acquaintance joins the broadcast and asks to apologize for being late, after which he sends a gift. The guy opens his mouth in surprise. This is an attraction ring worth $450,000. The Ring of Attraction is launching a lottery, in which users will need to go to his stream to participate. The main character grins contentedly, realizing that now people will flock to the broadcast. John takes out his brushes and by adding speed to his hands, begins to paint. People are delighted with the speed and beauty of the work. They praise the guy and give him compliments. Loaf takes out the third sheet, thinking that it's time to move on to the next drawing. The main character is happy that more people have come to his broadcast. There are already more than 1,000 people. We need to start working. John begins to draw, moving his hand faster and faster. It seems to the audience that the guy turned on a sped-up video. In a couple of minutes, the guy loses more than half of the people. Apparently, people are not ready for such a speed. The main character asks the moderator to keep people on the stream, otherwise they will completely run away. John writes slowly on the paper, asking whether the audience likes this speed better or not. Pachyderm starts sending messages one after another, saying that this is a real broadcast. The guy hopes that the spectators who left will soon return. All that remains for the main character is to continue drawing. A stunning girl was painted on canvas. People are sending admiring reviews. The response is not bad, so we need to continue. This time John will not reveal all his cards at once. Let them guess until the last. Soon the main character finishes drawing the character again, and the audience is again surprised by the guy's abilities. What follows is an illustration of a short-haired girl, which also causes a storm of emotions. After her, a new person is portrayed. People praise the streamer, praising his abilities and work. John draws another long-haired girl, receiving more and more comments on his drawing. The number of spectators is again more than 1,000, although it is already 10 o'clock in the evening. The guy decides that he should end his broadcast soon and start working on the last character. The main character quickly glances over what people wrote in the chat. Surely most teenagers don't know the last hero, it's worth educating them. Viewers are trying to guess who the streamer started working on. The drawing is stylistically different from others. Some guess the character. Some do not understand who is depicted on the canvas. Loaf slowly stretches, straightening his stiff arms and straightening them above himself. He says goodbye to subscribers, and says that tomorrow he will broadcast again, which will be dedicated to a different type of character. John discovers that many offers of cooperation and words of encouragement have been sent to him in private messages. The main character decides to evaluate the results of his stream by looking into the gadget. Even though he now has only 500 subscribers, this is a pretty good result for the first time. The guy earned about 1,000 during the broadcast, and now he is level 10 on the platform. Now the highest level is 40. You will still need to work hard to reach it. John hopes that in 2 or 3 sessions he will be able to complete the first stage of his mission. He imagines running after the girl he likes at the stadium. Standing behind her, the guy says he finally caught up with Kathleen. But suddenly the girl says that she tries to stay away from liars like him. The main character is very upset by the memories. He really wants to know whether his beloved is very angry with him. He decides that if he sees Kathleen on her morning jog, he will need to explain himself. But for now, he has an evening run waiting for him. The next morning, at exactly 5:30, the alarm on John's phone rings. He arrives at an empty stadium, realizing that the girl is not there today. The guy assumes that Kathleen is now avoiding him and considers him a bad person. He tries to soberly assess the situation, because John is nothing to her, and because of him, the girl couldn't stop running. The lady probably has something to do today. The guy needs to stop stressing himself out, because he needs to complete the task. The sneakers tell him that a distance of 5 kilometers has been covered, with about 4 more to run. John decides that there is no point in postponing, so he doesn't stop there and continues on his way. Having completed the route, he falls on his back, trying to catch his breath from the heavy load. The second stage of the task is completed. The main character receives a boost in strength and additional points. In the evening of the same day, he comes to the workshop to conduct a new stream. Suddenly, a man appears behind the guy and calls him by name. It turns out that it is Julia, who asks him if John has finished working on the illustrations, since he has enough time to broadcast. He replies that he wrote down a number of sketches and was just planning to go to the teacher tomorrow and give them to him. The main character hands the woman a stack of sheets and says that he made about 70 sketches. Julia is shocked by what she hears and sees because this is a huge amount. She says that these sketches should be enough, still not believing her eyes. The teacher doesn't understand how a guy manages to draw so much. John smiles slightly and replies that he has plenty of time in the evening. Julia says she watched her student's stream yesterday. She saw artists practicing speed drawing, but his speed is simply beyond the realm of possibility. The main character scratches his head and thinks how to explain all this to a woman, because he cannot say directly about his new acquired abilities. She asks if the guy really plays by the rules. John is shocked. She probably couldn't find out about the system. Julia asks the student if he was using any third-party programs during the broadcast. He sighs with relief and thinks that the teacher really scared him. The guy smiles sweetly and explains that his mother trained her son much tougher than the rest of her students. She says his mom has hellish methods, making a face at the memory of that time. Julia remembers how she had to pick up the peas scattered on the table with chopsticks in 5 minutes if she dropped even one. Then everything would start all over again. The woman also drew with a bell on a pencil, which was not supposed to ring. A little later, weights were used. The teacher still remembers them with a shudder. John's mother said that this is how little Julia develops speed, stability, and strength, and when she grows up, she will thank her teacher. The woman swallows nervously at the painful memories. The teacher puts a knowing hand on his student's shoulder, not imagining what he had to go through. Leaving, Julia tells the guy that she will send the sketches to the author of the novel and asks him to wait for news. The time comes to the moment when it is time to start broadcasting. The phone is secured. Everything is prepared. The guy starts drawing. Some viewers ask him to remain silent until the end of the broadcast because sometimes it can be very unexpected. While working on the next illustration, viewers try to guess the character. This is a lowly broadcast. The sketch is finished. Some people can guess who is depicted on the sheet. The guy finishes the first drawing. Some are happy with this speed of drawing. Some, on the contrary, are unhappy with this. The audience is growing. It seems John has figured out how to surprise people. He draws a minimalist girl in the opposite style of his. Next comes a drawing of Peppa Pig, of course. She is also a little girl, so she fits the intention of the broadcast. The main character laughs joyfully because people joke in the chat, which he appreciates. The guy is already warmed up. Now he can speed up the pace of work. The loaf takes out several sheets of paper. You need to surprise your audience with new tricks so that they don't get bored. The audience is surprised that the main character decided to draw several sketches at the same time. He draws a lot of lowlies, and people try to guess who is on each sheet. John feels that the addition of strength helps him even in this matter. He has to put in less effort when pressing. The guy decides to analyze the statistics. Now 895 people are watching him. This is clearly less than yesterday. Although there is nothing enhancing in this, yesterday a large number of people came because of the attraction ring. Such gifts are not received every day. But then, viewers come to the stream only for it and not to participate in the lottery. With only 5 drawings left before the end of the mission called Illustrator, John invites his audience to draw more drawings. He takes out 4 more sheets in order to complete his plan as quickly as possible. Without any difficulty, the guy fills out the first 2 sheets and proceeds to the other 2. In the eyes of the main character, one can see confidence in his own actions. He decides that it's worth drawing one more drawing and the broadcast can be completed for today. John begins to work. The audience is in great anticipation of what will be drawn. The main character again draws a male character as a female, which is why fans are starting to be outraged. He ends the broadcast and leaves his anger in front of the audience without hearing anything addressed to him. Batten completes the second stage of the illustrator's mission, enjoying the rewards he received. Suddenly, he notices that his imagination is also increased. After this, more and more new ideas begin to appear in his head. A plus has also been added to the drawing skill. Now the main character will be able to make his drawings better. With such abilities, the guy feels like a Superman of the fine arts. Having received 100 points to his account, John decides to buy a magic pen, as planned. He remembers changing modes with one click and decides to try this feature. Suddenly, a circle with different modes of his new device appears in front of the guy's face. It can become a marker, pen, pencil, and even an eraser. With such a gadget, John is no longer a Superman, but a god of drawing. Suddenly, a message comes to his phone asking why the guy ran away so quickly. He didn't even tell the audience what to expect on the next broadcast. The main character agrees with his friend. He was in such a hurry that he didn't even inform about the next stream. John grabs his gadget and starts writing in some chat that tomorrow he will also hold a stream at 8:30, where he will draw characters with animal ears. He decides to look at how the result of his work turned out and goes into a special application. Only 130 were earned. But the guy does not despair, because in a fast food cafe called McDonald's, one could earn less. Batten is very pleased with how his mission called Master of Streams is developing. Half of the 3rd stage has already been completed. Suddenly, a message from Julia arrives on the main character's phone. The woman transferred him 5,000 for illustrations for the novel. It seems it's time to move on to the spendthrift task. Arriving at the hostel in the evening, the guy sighs tiredly, talking about the fatigue of this difficult working day. Opening the door to his room, John notices something strange about it. Both of his neighbors have disappeared somewhere, which is completely unusual for them, so a little excitement appears on his face. Suddenly, the light comes on again, illuminating the room, and his friends and acquaintances appear in front of the guy and congratulate Batten on his birthday. The main character swallows nervously at the suddenness of these people's appearance. He asked to stop singing this song because the birthday will only be at Christmas last year. The guys joked about this many times. A blonde guy named Mark clarifies that this holiday cannot be celebrated exactly on the same day. Noodles explains that John has changed a lot lately, starting to run and broadcast, which he thinks is enough reason to celebrate. Daniel compliments everything that has been said with the fact that starting a new life is like being reborn. The hero looks upset at everything that is happening, not finding the right words. He thinks that this even makes some sense, because the guy managed to die and be reborn recently. Everyone enthusiastically clarifies whether they will celebrate, because they are already really looking forward to enjoying the chocolate cake. Batten agrees with satisfaction because this birthday celebration has much more meaning than all the previous ones. The guy sits by the cake, making a wish to become slimmer, stronger, and more charming. The main character blows out the candles, hoping that he will be able to become a better version of himself. Noodles offers to cut the cake, but John is not at all interested in that. He is doing something on his phone. The guy sends red money envelopes to his friends who came to the holiday, which makes them very surprised. He smiles sweetly and explains that he recently received a fee for illustrations, so now he doesn't mind pleasing his friends. Noodles smiles contentedly and thanks his friend for this. John asks not to touch someone else's, because everyone received an envelope. The main character hands over a piece of chocolate treat to Mark, thanking him for organizing this event. The blonde guy smiles shyly, saying that this is nothing for him. While munching on cake, Daniel asks the guys if they will go to the student's birthday party. Noodles replies that he won't be able to be there because he's going to the movies with his girlfriend. Mark also agreed to meet and exercise with a lady. John puts a piece of cake in his mouth and tries to say that he needs to broadcast again tomorrow. But suddenly it dawns on him and he asks if the party is dedicated to the Students' Day. Daniel looks at him with worry because the question was quite unexpected. With all the tasks from the system, Batten completely forgot about other important things. From memories of a past life, the guy remembers that Daniel was severely beaten at this party. After this incident, he remained very depressed for quite a long time. Suddenly, the hero asks his recently arrived neighbor if he is going to this party with his new girlfriend. The other guys are surprised by what they heard and say that their friend has already matured. Daniel wanted to talk about this a little later. John invites him to go to a restaurant. The money has already been paid and the table is reserved. He needs to broadcast, so unfortunately, there is no opportunity to go. He continues to talk about how the place is quite good. Noodles and Mark are shocked at the mere mention of this restaurant. The guys start coming up with excuses, which is why they won't be able to arrange their own meetings to get this ticket. Daniel says that the food in the restaurant is terribly expensive, and that's why the guy can't accept this gift. John says that the opportunity is very good, and if he refuses this offer, then their friends will gnaw each other's throats in the fight. The fair-haired and fair-haired friends look at their friend offendedly. Ultimately, the guy agrees to accept the opportunity to visit the restaurant with his lady, but agrees to return all the money a little later. The hero smiles good-naturedly and asks his neighbor not to rush into this. Having finished this dialogue, Batten heads to the bathroom, warning his friends about this. He latches the door and turns the faucet to turn on the warm water. After this, the guy calls his cousin to urgently reserve a table for tomorrow evening at a restaurant for his friend. She reports on the phone that a full set of dishes for lovers will cost $1,200. John thanks the girl and says that he will send the money now. The main character immediately sends money to his cousin's account to pay for Daniel's dinner with his lady love. Another $1,200 are sent to the Spender's Mission piggy bank. He helped himself and his friend. The task account has already spent about $4,400 out of the 10 needed to complete the first stage. Suddenly, the guy receives a message asking him to draw illustrations for a web novel. He immediately goes to the site to evaluate the author and his work. The numbers look quite impressive. John looks at the writer's page and discovers that he has about 100,000 subscribers. He likes to receive feedback from viewers on his streams, and viewers also like it. But spending paper and materials for the amusement of the public seems frivolous to him if Batten started drawing sketches for short stories on broadcasts. Then everyone could win. Thus, the guy could climb to the top of the illustrator's skill in no time. Having thought everything over, smiling, the hero decides to accept the invitation because it sounds quite profitable. He decides to show off, saying that he recently finished working on illustrations for a popular author. At the same second, the main character begins to receive messages of interest from this guy. He offers only 2 conditions, namely to be able to broadcast the work on the paintings, and the guy must be listed as the author in the writer's public page. An acquaintance agrees to this proposal, agreeing on $1,500 a week, but he will need to produce at least 10 high-quality sketches a week. John believes that the price is slightly lower than the market price, but due to this offer, he will be able to increase the audience on broadcasts. The guy gives the hero the contact of the author of the short stories. Now they will be able to communicate directly. The money will immediately come in advance. Batten grins at this dialogue. He thinks that the guy is rather taciturn. The main character begins to undress after all. It's time to wash, since he came to the shower. He decides to spend the next couple of days reading the novel, and then he will start making illustrations on streams. In the evening, the guy comes to the workshop. The short story turned out to be quite large, and the plot is also very confusing. John puts his phone on a tripod. Finally, he is ready to start illustrating. Recently, the number of views has been about 2,000. The numbers are stable, but there is no increase in growth. The guy has high hopes that people will come to this stream to read the novels. John writes a commentary on his broadcast that today he will pay attention to the illustrations for the novel. Advertising begins to work, and more people tune into the broadcast. The hero decides that the best option would be to entertain new viewers with something from the classics, so he begins to draw a dragon. People recognize the character, admire the speed of the guy's hands and the detail of his work. Viewers who are interested in the author who ordered the illustrations ask to draw something else and send gifts. John notes that the addition of imagination and hand speed gives a very good effect. He had never felt so confident in his strengths and skills. The main character again takes up the tools and with quick movements draws another character from the story. The man was depicted as a girl. Initially, it was not clear what his gender was, but at the end of the story, it became clear that he was a guy. Batten himself did not finish reading it, so he does not draw it entirely correctly. Despite this, he decides to move on to commissioned illustrations. The guy draws the main character and the girl next to them. The audience rejoices, because in general, this is what they came for. The last drawing on today's broadcast will be a minor character. John begins to paint. People watch his work with bated breath. Suddenly, he thinks about how fat people are always presented as funny side characters. The guy doesn't understand why fat people can't be brave in the eyes of others. The first stage of the Stream Master task is completed. Now John receives a bonus to his charm. Loaf looks at himself. He hasn't become any prettier. He doesn't know how to test his acquired skill. The hero decides that it is better not to scare the viewers of the broadcast with his face and voice. He thinks that only 1 point has been added to his charm, so perhaps it is quite insignificant and no one will be able to notice the changes. Suddenly a woman enters the workshop, shouting that it's time for her to close everything, and that it's long past 10 o'clock in the evening. The guy understands that it's already quite late. He didn't even notice that he was streaming for about 3 hours. John apologizes to the woman and says that he lost track of time and is already finishing up. Suddenly, she looks into his big, cute eyes, embarrassed by this. The woman smiles and asks him to take his time and do his job as long as necessary, while she solves the scan word puzzles. Batten is surprised by this practice, because there are legends about the harmfulness of this watchwoman, but suddenly she became just a darling. Apparently, the main character really has become many times more charming, since everything turned out this way. Feeling his power, he draws himself as the main character of the novel. John depicts himself in a battlesuit, looking very majestic. The guy says goodbye to his viewers and asks to come tomorrow at the same time. On today's stream, the audience was twice as large as usual. At some point, the hero was at level 12th. We can already say that he took this order for a reason. Batten decides to go for a run and then return to the dorm to test his charm again. Heading towards the stadium, he notices Daniel with his girlfriend. Surrounded by tall and aggressive people, he was probably attacked again. The guy opposite looks arrogantly at John's friend, who is ready to defend himself. It turns out that if the main character influences the course of events, he will not be able to change the outcome. The girl shouts to the attacker that they broke up a long time ago, and he shouldn't care about who she goes on dates with. Sitting in the bushes, John thinks that his opponent didn't even have enough time to come alone, and he invited his friends with him. The tall guy tells the girl not to interfere with their showdown and step aside. The main character does not want to stand by and watch his friend being pressed. He does not know whether he has the right to stick his hands into the natural course of events. Daniel resists and tries to stop his girlfriend's ex-boyfriend named Inessa. Friends of the striker Jeff are trying to prove to the girl that their friend is many times better than her new partner. Suddenly the guy turns his gaze there and sees John holding his friends by the scruff of the neck. He asks to start quickly, because soon the guards will begin to patrol the territory. One of the guys is trying to get out of the defender's tenacious grip. Tired of resistance, the guy goes limp, not understanding why the main character is so strong. Plus, the power finally came in handy for him. John asks them to start the showdown, pulling the guys aside, saying that they will not interfere. He thinks that even if Daniel grabs it, at least it will be an equal fight. Seeing his friend, the guy is very happy and smiles widely. Jeff doesn't understand who Loaf is or where he came from. He continues to be indignant, saying that earlier his friends talked about their skills in martial arts. Smiling evilly, the main character asks the guys if they heard what happened in the same place a month ago. Some girl screamed loudly that something had been stolen from her. That thief didn't even have time to walk 10 meters before he was already nailed to the ground. In the end, it turned out that this guy stole time from the screaming girl. The guys have already heard the story. According to the stories, that man had broken ribs. John could smear them on the asphalt. The main character stands behind the offending guys and says that no one will envy that poor fellow. Jeff looks at everything that's happening and wonders in his head if the three of them can handle it. Colliding with their eyes, Batten winks at his friend. Using some telepathy skill, he tells him that now is the time to make the offender respect him. The guy smiles widely and joyfully and replies that he understands him. Without hesitation, Daniel approaches Jeff from behind, placing his hand on his shoulder. He says that he likes Inessa and therefore is ready to deal with this here and now. If the guy is ready to leave her behind, then they will go their separate ways. Otherwise, there will be bruises. Jeff looks at him fearfully as Daniel explains his point of view and intimidates him. Smiling, the main character asks why the offender is sweating so much, although they haven't started fighting yet. Apparently, he can't stand this situation anymore. Jeff looks at the guys with indignation. He doesn't like that everything didn't turn out the way he wanted. He yells at Daniel that he's not done with him yet. Unexpectedly, the offender takes off and quickly runs away in an unknown direction. John hugs the remaining accomplices. Apparently, they were left without a spectacle. One of them asks to let them go because it's already late. The hostel will close soon. The main character agrees with this and removes his hand from the guy's shoulder. As soon as this happens, both run away at enormous speed in different directions, as long as they are further away from this place. John feels satisfied because he just saved his friend. Suddenly, something distracts him. Inessa hugs Daniel and says that she agrees to accept his proposal to start a relationship. The guy is terribly jealous of them and wonders when he will stop being lonely like a stray dog. As has been proven, a hero can still influence the outcome of events. Suddenly, he realizes that he was planning to go for a run, so he quickly heads towards the stadium. John begins to exercise. He runs 5 kilometers in 38 minutes. In recent days, he has been running 1 kilometer in 7 minutes. This pace does not even tire him. He needs to speed up. The guy has only 3 kilometers left, and he can finally complete the second stage. Without paying attention to anything, John gives it his all and runs the remaining distance. He completes the second stage and receives 50 points and a bonus to speed. Rejoicing at this, the hero begins to dance. His body was already ready to accelerate, and here there is additional speed. He thinks that the day has turned out to be quite productive. Suddenly, a familiar voice is heard behind him. The main character immediately turns around to look at the man's face. Kathleen smiles sweetly and waves to her acquaintance, saying that they haven't seen each other for quite some time. John thinks about 87 hours have passed since their last meeting. The hero says that he wanted to apologize for the last time, but unfortunately, the girl has not been seen for a long time. Kathleen explains that her brother reacted quite strongly. Walking to her destination was quite awkward, but now all that is gone. Having learned that the guy was Kathleen's brother, John feels like a weight has been lifted off his shoulders and refuses that the girl he likes is still single. She explains that he came to invite her to the wedding of her 13th brother. The main character finds himself thinking that it sounds like he is the 13th to the throne. Kathleen says there are 18 older brothers and 13 younger brothers in her family. John is shocked by what he hears because in the end, this is 31 brothers in total. He decides to clarify why there are so many of them. The girl denies that the story is quite long, and her grandfather originally had 6 brothers. Each of them had 3 or 4 sons in the girl's father's generation. There were 20 brothers and not a single sister. For all 3 recent generations, Kathleen is the only girl among 31 brothers. The main character's jaw drops at what he hears. It sounds like some kind of prank. She decides to tell him one telling story from her childhood, when Kathleen was in elementary school. The boys came up with the idea of hanging cocklebur on the girls' heads. It's such a nasty plant with prickly cones. One of the guys put a whole bunch of these bumps on her head, and she had to pull the thorns out of her hair all day. After school, the brothers met this boy at the school. Each of them wanted to tear him apart. When the director tried to pull this boy out, Kathleen's uncles came, and the director locked himself in his office. This conflict was resolved only thanks to the director's party connections. John thinks that he has heard the story before. Apparently Kathleen was that girl. He wonders how it must be hard to date guys with so many brothers. The girl replies that this really is such because subsequently willy-nilly she compares guys with them. Sometimes it seems to her that she already knows everything about different types of men, and it is difficult to feel interest in anyone. The hero says that being one guy among a bunch of sisters, the girl probably had a hard time. Kathleen assumes that they are talking about John and asks him to talk about his life. The guy sighs slowly and still decides to tell her about his sisters. The situation is similar. 4 older sisters and 3 younger ones. Among all the relatives, he is the only boy. When John was very little, their only interest was dressing him up as a girl. A little later, after 10 years, the interest subsided, so they began to feed him more and more. Someone said that love is intangible, but the hero has been carrying their love with him for many years. The guy pats his stomach. Kathleen smiles sweetly and says that there is no guy like him among her brothers. The main character becomes embarrassed and blushes, asking himself if the girl is flirting with him, suggesting that the reason is his charm. Having finished the warm-up, the girl begins her workout and says that she has to go. She wonders what is wrong with her today and why all this was said. John feels very energized and is ready to run even 500 kilometers. The guy starts running further. Kathleen wonders if her friend was running. He replies that he only ran 8 kilometers, but according to the plan, there were all 10. The girl looks warily at her friend and asks him if he is confident in his abilities. John has no doubts. He is progressing absolutely every day. After a few laps, the guy becomes hard and he asks Kathleen to continue training. A little later, he will catch up with her. Kathleen tells him to go rest. Otherwise, he will overtrain and won't want to get out of bed tomorrow. Stopping from fortunate fatigue, the guy sighs in frustration. The girl stops and says that a charity marathon will be held in a week, asking a friend if he is interested in this. Suddenly, a new task from the system appears in front of John. He needs to score 100 points of champion glory. This is already happening for the 3rd time. After her words, a new task appears. The main character assumes that Kathleen is somehow connected to his system. He asks if the girl is a non-playing character, and she, in turn, does not understand what he is talking about. Kathleen says that she is one of the people in charge of this mini-marathon, clarifying whether this is what the interlocutor meant. John's eyes light up and he asks the lady how he can sign up. The girl offers to send him a link, but the guy is not yet among her friends. She hands over her phone so that the hero scans her code. The situation repeats itself. Loaf stands frozen in surprise. Finally, he will have a social network of the girl he likes. The main character is incredibly happy about this development of events. He imagines them together. In the evening, John finally has the opportunity to fully familiarize himself with the task. Each time they have a different reward and structure. According to this system, the hero needs to win world competitions 20 times, which he is fortunately dissatisfied with. Batten decides not to pay attention to this task for now, since there is no strong need for it. There are already plenty of reasons for joy today, because his love added the guy as a friend. But, unfortunately, until she sent the link, John decided not to intrude and wait to look more on her page because thanks to this, you can get to know the person better. He suggests that there may even be photos of Kathleen on the social network. Having visited the page, the guy realizes that there is absolutely nothing on it except a marathon, but still decides to at least like it. Suddenly, a new task appears in front of John called the Crazy Liker. To complete it, you need to give 1 million ratings on the internet. The main character does not understand who this Kathleen is, because the task immediately appeared after his like. Upon completion of the mission, the guy will receive a +5 to visibility, although he never suffered from this since he was always surrounded by sisters. This will be a good addition. And then he gained so much weight that it was impossible to be invisible, even with a strong desire. But this task gives a lot of points. If John completes it quickly, he will become the owner of a miracle camera. With such speed of hands, there will be no difficulties. The main character immediately begins to give rating after rating on one of the social networks. A little later, he notices that in 10 minutes he couldn't even get 600 likes. Even with the enormous speed of his hands, John will have to poke at the screen for at least 3 hours on streams. This time is spent usefully. The guy needs to come up with something. In order to like on a social network, you must first open a post. You can give ratings on another network without any problems, so it would be more profitable to switch there. John starts liking all the posts he sees. The feed is incredibly interesting. He wants to read everything. In the end, it turns out even slower than it was before. The guy doesn't like today. Suddenly, his friend comes into the room. He stepped in dog poop right before he was about to kiss his lover. The main character is very interested in whether a thumbs up counts in real life. It was not said that likes count only on the internet. He tells his friend that stepping in poop is a sign of good luck and gives a thumbs up. The idea worked as it should. It works offline too. The guy says that his friend is incredibly handsome today and shows 2 likes. Noodles looks irritably at his neighbor and asks if he is alright in his head. Not paying attention to anything, the main character continues to show him fingers up. John continues to send estimates to complete his mission. He no longer needs to say anything, he can only show it. Suddenly, 2 more of their friends enter the room. They are interested in what they are doing. Not paying attention to anything, the guy continues to fulfill his mission. He is incredibly happy that he showed a like to 3 people and it counted as 3 ratings. Climbing onto his bed, he thinks that this is still not enough. Suddenly, a new idea comes into his head. He tells his friends that he has come up with a new dance for TikTok. One of them says that he has a bad feeling, but ignoring this, the guys continue to look at the guy. John lowers his head and then sharply raises his finger up. He dances and says that the guys are very good, cool, that he loves them. Continuing to give compliments, he asks if his friends see these thumbs up. The guys look at everything that is happening with stone faces, not understanding how it came to this. They disperse to different corners, showing with all their appearance that they didn't really like it. In just a minute, the main character gets 200 likes. Tomorrow he will go to some crowded place. The next day, the guy comes to the estate museum. There are a lot of people there. Everyone is looking in every direction. But the mainstream of people is standing in line for tickets. John should stand at the front of this line so that the largest number of people can see him. The main character is running away. Very soon people will see a lot of likes. He stands at the entrance, shows fingers up to all the people passing by him. The guy is very glad that he thought of this. Now he gets more than 20 likes at a time. From the outside it may look very stupid, but John is not even offended by comments addressed to him. After another couple of minutes, the main character completes the first stage, gaining visibility and additional points. If you continue in the same spirit, then very soon the guy will get his hands on the remaining 1,100 points. Suddenly, some kind of mating ball clings to his finger. He doesn't understand why he got it, because he's standing far from the bride. People rejoice, praise Baton, and tell him to go to the bride as soon as possible. Apparently, it's all about additional visibility. It is unknown whether the characteristic will bring more benefit or harm. Two young men congratulate him. The landowner's daughter chose John. They ask to go on stage with him. The guy assumes that he is called to go on stage with the actress. He is not particularly upset about this, because this place is the epicenter of attention. The audience encourages the spectacle and persuades John to go on stage. The guy looks admiringly at the crowd, surrounded by the landowner's daughter and the landowner's son. The main character thinks that soon he will like all the people around him. The men ask what the young man's name is. Since he's become part of a theatrical production, one must try not to lose face. John winks at the man and asks him to call him handsome. First he asks if he has already been married. The guy thinks that so that chatting according to the script will not bring him closer to completing the tasks, he needs to take the situation into his own hands. He says that he was fattened on homemade donuts. A bachelor could not stay in such great shape. People laugh loudly at this joke and enjoy the performance. The man also smiles and says that the gentleman is not without irony. He thinks that he is not standing in such heat, so that some fat man from the crowd will attract more attention to himself than the actors. He needs to drive him away as soon as possible. The man says that in this case, it is worth thanking the young gentleman for his participation, and seeing him off with applause, the daughter will have to throw the marriage ball again to find her betrothed. John smiles widely and asks in this case to allow him to perform a farewell dance. The audience asks him to start dancing as soon as possible. They are waiting for the performance. The main character is preparing for his dance. He must report that his daughter is someone. He says that the girl is the best, the most beautiful, simultaneously showing more and more fingers up. People laugh, calling the hero a clown. Some are happy about this performance. Others take a video and are going to post it on a social network. The guy gets 90,000 likes faster than he got the first 10,000. The system counts half 1,000 likes. The scheme is incomparable. The man is about to drive the young man off the stage and thanks everyone for watching. He calls to his assistant standing to the side, indicating that John needs to be removed quickly. The main character resists in every possible way, saying that his dance is not finished yet. He wants to continue it. The man stands aside and thinks that there are a lot of crazy people walking down the street. The guy decides to ask the worker of this estate when the landowner's daughter will throw the marriage ball again. Without answering this question, the man kicks John aside and says that he should leave quickly. For dancing on stage, he gave out almost 200,000 likes. At this rate, in 5 or 6 passes, he will get his 1,000 points. The main character is thinking that the girl threw a ball at him with +1 visibility, and now he already has +2. If he gets on stage again, people won't be able to kick him out that easily. John is surrounded by many people. They are all asking him to throw them a ball. The girl looks at the main character and thinks that again this sick man has stood among people. She needs to throw the ball anywhere but in his direction. She is terribly afraid. The main character notices this and thinks that he won't be able to go on stage. The ball is caught by another young man, smiling and laughing with happiness. The guy doesn't understand what to do. He can't just stand and watch. John raises his finger and shows like to all the people, shouting that he is handsome. The landowner and his daughter say goodbye to people, waving their hands and smiling. It looks like the actors are leaving for lunch. People are also starting to leave. The landowner's daughter remembers John well and will never throw the ball in his direction. There is no point in waiting for their next appearance. Looking at his phone, the guy realizes that it's time for him to have lunch. He has exceeded all his expectations, collecting a huge number of likes in half a day. After lunch, I still need to go see Julia for a couple, and broadcast in the evening. While it doesn't do anything, you can continue to rate it manually. Sitting on a bus, the main character tries to complete his mission using hand speed. 2 girls next to him are watching a funny video. John is dancing on it. They decide to approach the main character to ask if he is the one filmed in this video. Apparently someone posted this on TikTok. The video has already received about 100,000 likes. Unfortunately, these are just his likes. It's a pity that they are not taken into account by the system. The girls say that the guy is quite funny. They are delighted with this dance. Ladies, I suggest you perform it again to see the dance in reality. There are many fewer people on the bus than in the square in front of the estate, but this is better than manually poking at the screen. Without hesitation, John stands up and starts giving everyone the thumbs up, moving and dancing funny. After some time, it's time for the guy to get out. He is glad that this is his stop. Well, despite all the embarrassment, 5,000 likes is a good result for such a short trip. But still, he won't be able to get the 100,000 likes on his TikTok video out of his head. He can't shake the feeling that he's been robbed. Suddenly, the phone vibrates in his pocket. It's Noodles calling and shouting into the phone. Today, at a class, the old man was taking roll call and was very dissatisfied with his absence. He had never noted those absent before. Apart from him, about 5 other people did not come to the couple. But he only scolded John, saying that he would not allow him to take the exam. A friend invites him to write an explanatory note and go to him to apologize. Perhaps this way the teacher will become more loyal. The hero doesn't understand why. Out of the 6 people who didn't come, he only noticed him. Apparently, it's all because the guy is quite tall and fat. People are immediately struck by his absence or presence, but it hasn't come to this before. Suddenly it dawns on John that this was all due to his newly acquired visibility. He is very indignant because this is another setup from the system. It should help its bearer and not complicate his life. The system notifies that at the current level of visibility, the absence of the carrier in class will be noticed in 100% of cases. That same evening, the main character decides to come to his academy. He approaches the department office, holding a piece of paper in his hand and looking at it sadly. The explanatory note should reassure the old man. At least the guy really hopes so. Gathering his strength, John exhales noisily and knocks on the door. A voice is heard from it. Someone reports that he can come in. The main character embarrassedly opens the door and walks into the room. The professor inhales noisily, looking aggressively at the student who has just arrived. He starts shouting at him, not understanding how he has so much audacity to show up in his office. The man asks what these pranks are. Apparently, John is doing this instead of attending his classes, showing videos on his phone. The main character is surprised. Apparently, the old man is also on TikTok. The guy apologizes profusely, saying that he made a big mistake, and gives him an explanation. The man says that he will not let such behavior get away with this. John understands that the man is not in the mood today. He urgently needs to come up with something. Suddenly, some idea comes to the main character's head that can certainly help save the situation. He remembers that last time he saved his life with the help of charm using the example of a watchman. Now it can also work with a professor. The guy says that he does not deny his guilt, but is a good guy. Now the man strongly doubts it. John uses the power of his charm and looks at his teacher. The professor is touched and says that the guy actually didn't do anything inappropriate. He accepts the explanation, smiling, and asks not to miss his classes anymore. The main character will bow down and thank his teacher. The men don't understand what just happened. He worries and thinks that he has become soft in his old age. Joyfully heading home, John thinks that he needs to use his charm more often, because it really helps. Suddenly his phone starts ringing in his pocket again. He pays attention to it. The guy takes the gadget out of his pocket and picks up the phone. It turns out that it was spam. They clarify whether the guy wrote off about $120,000 from the bank account. More and more people are starting to call the main character, trying to deceive him or get him to do some favor. Apparently it's all about newly acquired visibility. The guy thinks that no one will like you, because he will definitely be noticed. He decides to turn off his phone until he gets back to the dorm, and then download a call blocker. But this time, it's not an advertising agency that writes to him, but a man for whom the guy recently drew sketches for a novel. He reports that 2 more acquaintances would like to work with John. He himself is madly waiting for the release of the continuation of these stories. The Sleepy Grandfather has long been one of his favorite web novelists, according to his own statement. As soon as he sits down to write, he immediately becomes sleepy. He rarely releases chapters, but the short stories turn out wonderful. That same evening, the main character comes to the workshop, begins his broadcast, and says that he will first draw 5 classic American characters, after which he will begin illustrating the stories. The hero draws various superheroes, Smurfs, avatars, and other popular characters. Having finished with this, it is worth starting to draw illustrations for the novel called Dungeon Spirits. With quick movements of his hands, he draws a coffin. Suddenly, he notices that about 6,000 people are now watching his broadcast. The number of views increased by 9,300, which is twice as much as before. The main character assumes that all this is thanks to links from his sleepy grandfather. Suddenly it dawns on him that this is not only the merit of the author of the short stories. He understands that these arrivals are due to visibility. At least in some way it helped. Remembers all the past time. It is unknown whether celebrity is a gift or a curse. For now, it's better not to bother the monster there. There may be too many side effects from this characteristic. No more dancing. Suddenly, the guy receives messages. This is the moderation of the streamer platform. At 8 in the evening, the channel will be included in the list of recommendations in the drawing category. Thanks to this, he will receive even more views, will soon complete the task, and will receive another +1 to his charm, after which he will become irresistible. The more pumped up his charm becomes, the greater the chance that people will fall in love with him. It turns out that there are much more advantages to being a celebrity than disadvantages for the sake of great love. you will somehow survive calls from scammers. The guy still decides that he will go dancing tomorrow. He's traveling by bus. The next stop is the estate. Please get ready to leave. If the main character is on stage again, he will probably finish the task as an impeccable liker. After all, today is Friday, there should be even more people. Due to the impossibility of skipping classes unnoticed, he can only come here in the evenings. Arriving at the square, John does not see your number of people and actors. Apparently, they are on a break. Suddenly, among the crowd, the guy notices the landowner, waves his hand and calls him to him. He heads towards the man. They say that he has a request. He begs to let his colleague throw the marriage ball at his side. The landowner tells him that nothing can be guaranteed here, because the outcome is random. There are times when, in order to be lucky, you first need to make an effort. The main character hands the man his phone and asks him to look at the video. He realizes that the guy in the video is from the last time he danced. The man is surprised by the number of views the video has collected, about 1 million ratings. He suggests that John is now a social media star. The main character replies that the truth is a very popular person on TikTok. He also adds that their cooperation could be very mutually beneficial. His popularity can really help attract more spectators to the performance. But the guy is too capricious. He cannot be allowed to ruin their performance. Despite all the doubts, the man accepts his offer. He sets the condition that now he can start dancing only after the main part of the performance. John replies that 3 minutes at the very end will be enough. The guys shake hands, agreeing on cooperation. Last time the hero distributed about 20,000 likes in a minute on stage. Now he will have 3 minutes. Besides, his visibility has increased. Today he will be able to complete this task. The performance comes to an end. People in the crowd notice Baton and are happy that today will be many times more interesting than always. The husband and wife exchange bows and then go to the bridal room. This day is very significant for John, so he decides to share his joy with people and dance. The audience already knows what will happen. They shout joyfully and clap their hands. The main character prepares to perform his dance by removing his bow. He and other workers among the actors begin to perform his thumbs-up dance with him. People laugh, compliment them, and look at what is happening with enthusiasm. The guy decides that now is the time to use his abilities to the fullest. He activates his hand speed and visibility skill, flashing his fingers up at great speed. The third stage is completed. He has completed everything he needs. Previously, the numbers were growing rapidly. The system notifies that after completing the tasks, an achievement called Crazy Lucky 2.0 will be awarded, and, on top of everything else, a +10 will be added to visibility. The guy doesn't understand why there is also an increased version for such a bad task. He doesn't need an additional +14 to visibility. He won't be able to survive this. He decides that he has already received the coveted 1,000 points. His visibility is already through the roof. He doesn't need more. He gets a lot of points. But with a further increase in this level, it is better not to risk it. The hero decides to open the items that became available with this task, and there he finds a cap. When worn, the level of visibility will be close to 0. He decides that with such a cap he can even do whatever he wants. John decides that he should calm down. This cap will simply reduce his new visibility, but will not make him invisible. Unfortunately, this cap costs a whole 1,000 points, just like the miracle camera. Now he doesn't have the funds for it. He performed this task only to buy a new gadget, but now the cap is much more needed. With something like this, a guy could negate all the side effects of visibility and take advantage of its benefits when needed. The camera will wait first of all. It's worth buying a new item of clothing, which will subsequently help you live comfortably. Unfortunately, an error appears on the screen. The purchase will become available only after completing the first stage of the new task. John continues to poke at the screen in disappointment. He needs this cap now for the sake of it. He will have to dance again. Looking at the time, he decides that he should think about this later. But for now, he needs to rush to the stream. The guy gets on the bus. Now everyone around him is staring at him. Even when he had a +2 in visibility. He felt uncomfortable, but now he's already a +6. Some guy is trying to steal a wallet from the main character's pocket. The man takes notice of this and shouts at the petty thief. The hero flies into a rage and shouts that he clearly ran into the wrong thing. He sits on the guy's back and says that he just wanted to take a ride while sitting on the bus. He doesn't understand why he didn't think sooner, choosing a victim out of his weight category. The guy apologizes and says that previously he only stole from grandmothers, even pickpockets. Cannot ignore the advantage of visibility. Without this cap, the main character will soon touch his head. People on the bus are delightedly rejoicing, saying that John did everything right in relation to the thief. The bus driver says that if he decides to turn the guy into the police, he will take them. Not paying attention to anything, the guy takes his phone out of his pocket and starts looking at it. If he goes to the police, then it is unknown how long it will take, and today is his first stream after getting on the recommended list. But if you just let this pickpocket go back to the workshop, he will disappoint all these good people. Our world is constantly changing, but some things remain unchanged if someone had a person's wallet. then the chance of getting their money back and catching the thief is usually negligible. Most people don't care at all about other people's grief. They prefer to stay on the sidelines and not get involved. But this crowd behaved differently. It is unknown whether John's visibility influenced this situation, but their willingness to sacrifice their time in order to act as witnesses against a pickpocket is very impressive. The main character cannot just spit on their souls, and as for the broadcast, this can be done on any other day. The guy decides not to disappoint people and says that they are now heading to the police station. The man from the transport decides to make a video, because the content needs to be shared with other people. John realizes that in this situation he can also broadcast. After all, he is the main character in this situation. The guy asks someone to lend him a notebook and pencil in order to fulfill everything he had previously planned. The girl raises her hand and shouts that she will gladly help the young man. John takes out his phone and decides that before the broadcast, he should explain to the viewers what is going on. He writes an appeal that he became a victim of a pickpocket, so today's stream will be on this topic. They managed to catch him, he is sitting on it now. Now people are taking him by bus to the police. The main character is filming the crowd on the bus. He caught the thief thanks to these kind people. They immediately intervened in the situation. In order to remain mysterious to his viewers, the guy decides to go into hiding today. His face is ordinary. There is nothing to show. Now is the peak of evening traffic jams. They will not get to the nearest station anytime soon. Therefore, the best option would be to stream on the bus itself, with the pickpocket serving as an easel. The girl offers to hold the phone while the hero draws. The guy has limited resources today, so he decides to draw several black and white sketches in the style of popular anime. He begins to work on the sketches, finishing each one quickly. Viewers in real life are delighted with his drawings and say that they, too, should subscribe to the guy. The pickpocket screams loudly. This whole situation is unpleasant for him, but the sketch is ready. It depicts two people who are not difficult to recognize. The bus driver tells people that there are only a couple of minutes left to get to the station. The main character decides that this time should be enough for him. Using the speed of his hands, he finishes the last sketch for the day. Everything turned out better than everyone expected. The transport arrives at the police building. They just managed to make it before it closed. Now John will go to hand over this pickpocket to the police. The stream is over for today. He leads the guy by the scruff of the neck and hopes that this incident will serve him as a lesson. Having finished with all the business, the main character leaves the building and thanks the officers. Today, he is very tired that he doesn't even want to run. Now he would like to drink a can of cool Coca-Cola and lie down in his bed. While the guy is heading towards the house, he is very attracted to the drink machine. The main character turns in his direction as if Coca-Cola itself is calling him. But he's trying to lose weight and it's already quite late. He imagines glass jars with a drink in the form of girls. They used to be in close relationships with him. Has he really forgotten about it? Despite all the side effects, he asks her if she thinks that he won't drink the lady. Scales appear in the guy's imagination. They ask if he remembers how much he weighs. John remembers all the saddest and most offensive words addressed to him, thereby preventing himself from being tempted. He remembers his weight, so he didn't drink anything. The guy turns in the other direction and tells someone that he asked her if he doesn't believe it. Suddenly, the main character comes to his senses and does not understand where he is and what is happening around him. John exhales calmly. It seems that he has already begun to hallucinate from hunger. Although the guy has been running for about a month, he doesn't know if there is any result. Approaching the scales standing on the street, the hero decides to weigh himself. The guy takes off his sneakers and jacket to remove excess weight. It's better to leave his pants on. The scales show 113 kilograms. A month ago, the guy was at least 120. At least the main character lost 7 kilograms. He turns towards the machine, quickly puts money in and buys a bottle of water. If now the hero allowed himself to drink cola, then tomorrow he would already eat a chocolate bar. He ran for a whole month. Not so that everything lost would come back in a couple of days. It is better to wait for the teeth and continue to work on yourself. If you think about it, over the past month, John has not only lost weight, but also achieved good results in other aspects. He spends a lot of time on completing the task of the walker, and only runs 20 kilometers a day. You need to think about how it could be combined with some other activity, for example, as he did with the tasks of the illustrator and stream master. While there is no one at the stadium, you need to buy and try a new camera as quickly as possible. He opens his system and completes the purchase of a new gadget. The camera looks, to put it mildly, strange. It is better not to use it in public. Otherwise, it will attract too much attention. It would be much better if it looked like a regular camera. Without having time to finish, the gadget is transformed. It can transform at will. John decides to test the camera to make sure of its capabilities. It enables broadcasting with just the power of thought, and it is very convenient to operate without hands. Today, the main character, as usual, will run about 10 kilometers, and the day after tomorrow, there will be a mini marathon with Kathleen. Before that, you need to complete the current stage in order to improve your characteristics even more by the time of the marathon. Only 2 people came to the broadcast, but the number of views increased by 4. 2 people standing in the country look at how the main character runs. When a guy broadcasts, views are taken into account not only online, but also offline. If he had known this earlier, he would not have streamed alone in the workshop. Now he needs to change the broadcast strategy. The next morning, the guy comes to the estate museum where the performance is taking place again. People look at what is happening with pleasure. They think that this is a real wedding. Today has again become a significant day for him. The main character got married again, so he asks to share the joy with him and dance. People around raise their hands jubilantly, shout, and ask to start dancing. John asks his assistant to go downstairs and film him now the hero is broadcasting. A man walks down to the crowd and points the camera at the guy, smiling sweetly. Having finished the dance, John made an announcement. In 10 minutes he will start drawing portraits for free. He asks not to be shy and to participate. The experiment of combining tasks was successful. In a few minutes he manages to gain more than 30,000 views. The progress with the distribution of likes is not so impressive, but he had just a minute. The landowner approaches the hero and asks him to hold off on dancing for now because he is drawing all the attention to himself. The main character stands among the crowd and calls more and more people to him, offering free and well-drawn portraits. He asks not to be shy, to come up. The drawing will come out beautiful and fast. The crowd stands to the side so the hero can dance, draw, and broadcast. John asks not to leave, but people are not ready to agree to drawing a portrait. Viewers write in the comments that they have been watching the streamer for about half an hour, trying to call people over, but everyone refuses. Everyone thinks that this is just a scam, because the drawing is done completely free of charge. People are embarrassed to be the first. He just needs to find one, and the rest will come one after another. John notices the landowner's daughter in the crowd. She must save him. The main character approaches her and asks if she has a couple of minutes of her time. The girl wonders if the newlyweds paint portraits of her. He replies that he was assigned this at the art academy and asks her to pose. The lady smiles sweetly and asks to try to finish quickly because she will soon go on stage again. The girl sits down and asks if she is sitting normally. Many comment on all this from the side. The main character quickly ends with a portrait. 2 ladies nearby ask if they can also sit down and get their drawing. He replies that everything is absolutely free. There is no catch in this action. The landowner's daughter sighs from surprise and the good result. Holding a piece of paper in her hand, she smiles widely and says she is absolutely delighted. The girl asks to take a photo with the artist, because he's very talented. The guys stand next to each other, holding a portrait in their hands, and pose for a photograph. Suddenly, another task appears. To complete it, you need to take 100 photos together with different people. As a reward, he gets the benefit of being photogenic, and having an infectious smile. It is unclear whether this is necessary, since the guy is not such a public person. Be that as it may, these characteristics certainly won't do any harm. And besides, you can complete this task casually. The girl approaches the hero, wondering if she can get a portrait, and asks him to draw her as nicely as possible. Having received the drawing, she asks to take a photo with him and praises the work. The main character immediately agrees. People continue to send comments in the chat. The crowd surrounds the guy, asking for more and more portraits. People start lining up to see him. Considering its length, even if the guy spends about 5 minutes on each person, the people who are now standing at the end will not receive their portrait even after 3 hours. This won't work, and besides, it's very hot outside. You need to work faster. The main character holds out a quicker portrait of the girl. The lady asks what kind of hack he painted for her. She didn't expect such a result. Before her, the guy drew multicolored drawings for all the girls, but hers turned out to be monochrome. Before her, each portrait took about 5 minutes. The guy spent no more than 2 on this. John explains that he just wants everyone in line to get a portrait. However, the girl is very unhappy with what is happening, because as soon as it was her turn, the style changed a lot. She asks to take and draw a normal portrait right now, even if it takes about 15 minutes. Otherwise, she will tell the rest of the people in line that the longer they wait, the worse the quality of the drawings will be. The guy decides that it would be stupid to make a row with her now. He will only waste time on nonsense. By the way, a person standing in line just wrote on the broadcast. The main character uses the power of thought and asks for help not to be distracted. The guy understands this and says that he will soon head in their direction. A man stands next to people on the sidelines, smiling very gloomily and scary. The guy asks his friend not to pay attention to this hysterical woman and draw as he wants. The girl asks what this man just called her. He wonders if she is deaf. He grins while continuing to argue with her, distracting her from the main character. The guy inhales heavily through his nose to start talking about his thoughts. He explodes and shouts at the girl. The hero painted a portrait for free, and the lady does not understand the essence of what is happening. Despite everything around him, the guy continues to speak out because the lady is holding up the line with her indignations. He repeats everything he said again so that the girl clearly realizes her mistake. The cheering crowd claps in agreement with his words. The girls approach the indignant people from the side and ask them to leave here, because they are detaining everyone. One of the others approaches the streamer and asks for his profile in order to subscribe. John replies that you need to enter Batten's workshop in the application so she can subscribe. The girl sends an attraction ring. He thanks her. She is very generous. The main character continues to draw portraits of people and take photographs with them, completing more and more tasks. Having completed the mission, the guy receives the most easily earned points of all time. The characteristics, in turn, may help in the pursuit of tomorrow's marathon. In just today's broadcast alone, the guy received 100,000 views. Against this background, the previous figures seem simply ridiculous. If we continue at the same pace, then in a week, John will be able to complete the 3rd stage, or he will be close to it today. He still needs to run up to the 200-kilometer mark in order to improve his endurance for tomorrow's marathon. Taking the easel and all his things, the guy heads toward the stadium and asks his marathon to wait for him. The next day, having arrived at the competition, the main character approaches the information desk. He says that he is a participant in the marathon, asking for a t-shirt. The girl at the reception thinks that this fat guy can't participate in it. The guy shows his phone, talking about an application for participation, but apparently they don't have that size. Kathleen approaches the hero from behind. The girl is glad to see him arrive. The lady holds out a t-shirt for her friend. She put it aside especially for him. The guy is incredibly happy about such generosity and care on her part. Kathleen points her finger towards the bushes and says that there is a man sitting in them and sneaking glances at him. John explains that this is her neighbor in the dorm. He also wants to take part in the marathon, but is very shy. Having quickly reached the couple, he explains that he really wanted to find out if his friend really took part in the competition. Kathleen believes that running a marathon is a piece of cake for the main character, because he is a great fellow. Noodles doesn't understand how the girl knows his friend so well. The girl does not answer this question and says that she has a lot to do and should leave urgently. Turning to her friend, Kathleen compliments the loaf's smile. Noodles praises his friend for being able to charm such a stunning lady. John jumps with happiness because the girl he likes praised him. The main character asks his friend to help him with the broadcast since he came to this marathon. He reminds you that you can't take off your face because the guy is hiding it. John greets his subscribers. Today he promises to donate the entire amount raised to the fund of this marathon. He explains that today he will not show his face again, because he does not want his face to become the basis of his popularity. Okay, the hero tells his friend that he needs to get on a moped and film the guy from the side, parallel to the audience. Noodles looks at him indignantly, not understanding who he takes him for. The friend is not going to participate in this, because he thinks that he looks like a servant. Despite all his doubts, Noodles gets on a moped and says hello to his subscribers. Viewers already know that today the loaf will take part in a charity mini-marathon in total. More than 2,500 participants signed up for this event, mostly students and young white-collar workers. The guys around John tell him that the guy shouldn't run fast, otherwise his heart will stop. Despite all the comments, the guy closes his eyes and tries to calm down. Opening up his system, he sees a sports drink that prevents dehydration, provides the body with enough electrolytes and essential minerals, and is effective within an hour. The guy decides to find out how capable he is. On a normal day, he can run 10 kilometers in an hour and a half. Despite all his doubts, the hero wants to challenge himself and run this distance in 1 hour. People are running nearby. The first kilometer has been completed, and the time taken is 6 minutes and 30 seconds. John decides that this kilometer was a warm-up. Now he can speed up. Following him is his friend, who films everything that happens on video. The guy doesn't understand what happened to his friend, because before he was out of breath when walking fast. Noodles screams and asks viewers of the broadcast to support the hero with their donations. 2 guys on a motorcycle drive past John. They say that he clearly weighs more than 100 kilograms. But he doesn't lag behind the others. Enough of him, and they say that he is an example to follow. One of the guys says that if he reaches the end, he will become the main event of this marathon. Soon there will be the first food station. You need to take water to wash down the energy gel. You need to replenish your body with carbohydrates. Acceleration consumes too much energy. The main character opens his system and takes an energy gel, which replenishes glycogen deficiency in the muscles and relieves 50% of fatigue, is effective within 10 minutes. He reaches the food station. He is incredibly happy that now he has the opportunity to take water. The guy grabs the bottle and immediately pours it on his head. He ran 3 kilometers. The time taken was 18 minutes and 30 seconds. Everything is going well. John ran the second and third kilometers 30 seconds faster than the first. He needs to maintain this speed until the end of the marathon. The guy does not give up and continues his relay race. There are still about 7 kilometers ahead. Suddenly, Noodles stops. He's in complete shock. It seemed to him that he came here just for show. He was sure that he would leave the race after a couple of 100 meters, but today he breaks all the patterns. The guy's eyes well up with tears of pride for his friend. Noodles follows his friend, shouting in his direction that he's very proud of him. The main character thinks that under no circumstances will he give up and leave the race. At the 5th kilometer, it becomes increasingly difficult for John to maintain the same pace. His strength is clearly leaving him faster than he expected. Stopping at the second food station, the main character can barely walk, is sweating and breathing heavily. It seems that he will not be able to last long on water alone. The effect of the sports drink is still valid. The energy gel replenishes glycogen stores in the muscles, but this is still not enough. Perhaps at a slower running pace, they would reduce fatigue to nothing, but now they are of almost no use. After 8 kilometers and 48 minutes, the protagonist's legs become like cotton wool. From fatigue, his vision begins to darken, and it becomes difficult to continue running. The guy remembers all the offensive comments addressed to him from various people. His head is spinning. The main character is very upset about his condition because he desperately wants to lose weight, because he is tired of being fat. Suddenly, out of nowhere, his friend's voice is heard. He says to look straight ahead. The guy runs very first, in front of him, literally a couple of meters away. You can see the finish line. Due to a lot of emotions, he begins to scream loudly as he continues on his way. There remains less and less distance to victory. All his acquaintances and friends are watching what is happening with concern. Having reached the finish line, John breaks the tape and runs forward. From fatigue and the inability to walk anymore, his eyes close and he begins to fall. Fortunately, Kathleen is standing in front of him, who catches the guy's emaciated body. The rescuer shouts that they have an accident. The person is unwell and urgently needs a doctor. To the side lies a moped on which his friend recently followed the main character. Such an unexpected event very frightens everyone around, because people do not always fall from vehicles. Noodle shows his face on camera and says that he is fine. He assumes that everyone is terribly interested in knowing what is happening to the loaf now. I turn my head towards my friend. He notices that he is lying on the ground unconscious. The main character is incredibly happy that he won, that he was able to step over himself and do more than he did before. Frightened, Noodles runs towards his friend, worried about his condition. He picks him up and theatrically screams at him not to die. The doctor reports that the guy will be fine. His body is just exhausted. He needs rest. Kathleen says that her friend should take a break and now she should be behind the flock with donations. The friend hugs his neighbor. He is very glad that everything is okay with him, but John pushes him away and asks him to unstick. Due to this, Noodle accidentally points the camera at the protagonist's face. He closes the camera with a quick movement of his hand, because he didn't want to show it. With calmness, the guy says that if everything happened this way, then there is no point in hiding his face any longer. The main character lowers his head and asks the audience to prepare for something new and interesting. He picks up the camera, points it at his face, and says that he would not advise overweight people to try to repeat this right away. You need to prepare for this. John started running about a month ago, and during that time he ran several 100 kilometers. For starters, he mastered the running technique, so his knees were safe. You should definitely see how much dripped during today's broadcast. Now the guy is watched by more than 80,000 viewers. John thanks everyone who subscribed to his channel and donated, either to him or directly to the application of today's mini marathon. He sees that people were very generous, promises to donate an amount equal to their donations. Today, the main character received 9,850,000 coins from people. That's 9,850. There's no point in putting it off. Without missing a beat, the guy moves towards the donation counter. Kathleen says all you have to do to donate is scan a code from the counter. John scans the code with his phone and sends 10,000. The girl is shocked to see such an amount. Noodles is surprised, because after the commission from the application, the guy will take more than 50%. The main character replies that he is aware of what is happening and donated this money personally, hoping that no one will think that he is a major and is spending his mother's money. The guy replies that his sketches have been selling well lately. Kathleen, in turn, thanks him and hands him a napkin for the guy to wipe the sweat from his face. The girl standing next to her tells her that John looks quite handsome. She focuses on the obesity of the main character, but this is quite fixable. Suddenly, a hated hero appears behind the guys, namely, a blonde guy. She asks not to call him what he just called her. On the way, he got stuck in a traffic jam. He thought that he wouldn't catch the girl. It's good at least he has an expensive car, and after the guy drove out onto an empty avenue, there was no stopping him. Because Daniel doesn't like to run, but he can support her with flowers and donations. John picks up the code card and shoves it in the hero's face. He asks the guy to scan the code in order to send money. Daniel brushes him off and asks him not to teach the scientist. The main character gets very annoyed and hopes that he won't get angry with him. The blonde guy puts a lot of money on the table. Kathleen warns him that by doing so, she is supporting not the girl, but the fight against poverty. Daniel shrugs it off and says that he doesn't care what's happening. He turns towards John and asks him why he's staring at him. Suddenly, one detail dawns on the blonde. He knows this man. The guy says that the main character is the same guy with the funny dances from TikTok. Daniel looks at John appraisingly and tries to piece together the man's identity in his head. Mockingly, he says that the guy probably eats well, asking if he donated anything to poor people. The hero shrugs it off and says that he cannot reach Daniel's sums. The guy thinks that he would really like to hit the blonde, but you can't behave like that on a stream. Daniel says everyone donates to the best of their ability. Noodles explodes from injustice and starts to get into a fight, but his friend quickly stops the guy and takes him aside. The friend wonders if Batten was scared of this man because he didn't do anything. He asks for an explanation not for him, but for the viewer, because people are at a loss, since they saw everything that happened from beginning to end. The main character smiles and says that despite the hero's personality, he will also donate a lot of money. It would be wrong to publicly humiliate a person after he has done a good deed. The main character explains his point of view, shares his opinion, and then ends the broadcast. He needs to return to the hostel and rest, and promises to hold another stream in the evening. Today turned out to be quite a fruitful broadcast. It is getting closer to 1 million views. At one point, the main character was watched by more than 87,000 people. He is already at the 20th level. Daniel, surrounded by 2 other guys, communicates with the girl, their voice saturated with resentment after realizing the truth. People tell the guy that now he is no longer John's competitor. They decide to take revenge, so the blonde tells the girl to act according to the plan when his opponent comes out. Otherwise, her parents will find out how much she owes him. Half an hour later, 3 guys are sitting behind the bushes when a lady is standing near the entrance to the room. She immediately approaches the main character and asks him for help. The girl says that she left something in the workshop on the 5th floor and asks to take her there. This thing was given to her by her mother, and it is of great importance to her. There is no light on the 3rd and 4th floors, so the girl is scared. The main character assumes that she wants to take revenge on him. The guy continues to think in his head, deciding whether to do it. Ultimately, he agrees, because the lady looks kind of scared and confused. Walking along the corridor, he notices that there is light everywhere, both on the 3rd and 4th floors. The girl replies that the light bulbs have probably already been changed. The guy says that there is light everywhere here, his help will no longer be useful. Suddenly, the lady grabs his hand, after which he apologizes and tears his shirt. She starts screaming loudly, screaming for help. The main character runs up and moves in an unknown direction, realizing that it was all a setup. But along the way, 3 guys appear in front of him. They recognize John and speak to him quite arrogantly. They comment on the situation, saying that it is quite terrible. Daniel says that if Kathleen finds out what a pervert the guy really is, if the whole academy finds out, then something irreparable will happen. The girl sits on her knees, screaming loudly and crying from the realization that she was threatened. She had no other choice. Daniel explains that he actually threatened the lady. The main character knows that in this case the problem is not so big. He begins to laugh loudly, bursting with lightness after realizing. John says that he finished the stream but forgot to turn off the camera, so it's not so bad. He explains that the video shows that the guy didn't lay a finger on the girl, and he also hears a confession that Daniel threatened her. If Kathleen finds out what the guy really is, if the whole academy finds out, then something irreparable will happen. Now the end has come for the blonde. They wanted to bend Batten, but he himself did exactly the opposite. The 3 guys begin to cry and worry a lot about what they did. They apologize to him. John says that he has only 2 conditions for him to do what the guys want. The first will be to apologize to the lady. Moreover, if he continues to threaten her, he will not like the consequences. The second condition will be that Daniel must stop interfering with John, who sympathizes with the girl. The blonde tearfully replies that he will do everything as the guy asked. The lady meets the guy at the entrance to the building and apologizes for what she did. She really did something really stupid today, okay, even though it didn't end the way they planned. There is no need to follow the lead of scoundrels like them. You need to think with your own head. The main character says that last time he approached her rather unceremoniously, they will assume that they are even. The lady asks for her account on a popular social network. The guy gives her his contact without any problems. Suddenly his phone rings. He knows a popular girl. Worried, the main character hangs up the call and says that he wrote down his dorm roommate this way as a joke. She replies that she also wrote down her friend in a similar way for the sake of humor. They have a lot in common. It turns out that a really popular woman called him. She wonders why he is dumping her calls. Crouching down, hoping that no one will notice the guy, he asks her why she's calling. The girl asks what the hero could be doing so late, wondering if he has a girlfriend. She explains that he doesn't tell anything, and therefore we can only guess. From a close informant, it became known that recently the guy has changed a lot, began to run, broadcast, even lost weight. They fattened him up so much, and it all turned out to be in vain. The main character breaks down and says that he knows her informant, after which he asks why she's calling. The woman replies that he chose a rather interesting tone for communicating with her. after which she asks if he needs tickets to the concert. Says to come on October 5th and pick them up from her. He remembers going to this concert in his previous life. It would be great to go to it with Kathleen. At the stadium, the girl comments that today he kept a very high pace lately. John has been running slower than during the marathon, but much faster than before. The girl says that during the competition, she photographed him a couple of times. The main character promises to look. The guy notices that the lady practically called him handsome. John really came out great in the photographs, all thanks to his photogenicity. Kathleen asks if he's had enough of himself. The guy looks away from his phone and thanks her for the photos. The girl says goodbye to him and says that she is returning on the 11th. The main character asks if she has plans for the holidays. She explains that she will be back soon since her brother is getting married on the 15th. John says that he has 2 tickets to a popular person's concert on October 5th. He initially planned to go with his dorm roommate, but it doesn't work out for him. Embarrassed, he invites the girl to go with him, saying that if she refuses, then it's okay. The guy thinks that he has already experienced more than 100 rejections, so he will survive another one. Kathleen lights up with happiness and thanks him for the offer, agreeing to go with him. She herself tried to buy a ticket to her concerts, first in another city. Both times it didn't work out. Kathleen even thought about returning and looking for tickets from resellers at the entrance. But suddenly it turned out that her friend had a ticket. She asked to tell the amount and then he would transfer the money. John says that there is no need to translate anything. He himself got the tickets for free. He offers to take him to dinner when he arrives. Kathleen asks him not to disappear anywhere, after which he says goodbye to him. The main character rejoices madly with happiness and delight because his beloved has agreed. In the evening, at the gates of the academy, he begins another broadcast. Today he will run to the lake, and after that he will draw several landscapes. The entire route is about 12 kilometers. The main character runs with his fingers raised. Likes are given to everyone he meets, and now 3 tasks are being completed simultaneously. The hero admires his intelligence and doesn't understand why he didn't come to this before. An hour and a half later, he reached his destination. The distance is slightly greater than in the marathon, but the final time is lower. Suddenly, a new task called a night walker appears in front of his face. To complete it, he must visit 100 scenic spots. Apparently, he will have to walk at night instead of sleep. And this may negatively affect his weight loss, but perhaps the ability to stay awake should eliminate all the negative consequences of sleep disturbances after rebirth. The main character is very short of time. After completing all the tasks, John gains many different skills. Observation and a sense of taste for an artist are the very thing. If his assumption is that the ability to stay awake means more time, then the task is simply a must. Suddenly, the guy notices a lot of comments for him. He completely forgot about introducing the broadcast. John says that he suddenly entered into a dialogue with the inner sage. It's time to start painting landscapes. He completes the first task and receives a bonus to his ability to stay awake, which makes him very happy. The first landscape is finished. The lotus pond is approaching. He works on many different landscapes and ultimately ends with the main character. After this, he gains charm. Now he becomes even better. Completing all his plans, the main character says goodbye to his viewers, but suddenly he receives a call from the girl who recently set him up. She screams into the phone and asks the guy for help at the moment. Sitting in the car, John fearfully asks what's wrong. The girl explains that she came out of karaoke. A group of drunk guys followed her. When she ran, the guys started screaming after her. The main character wonders where she is now. He shouts to the driver to follow the named address, namely to one of the alleys. The man asks to buckle up and then accelerates the car, following as quickly as possible. John comes and sees a lot of guys. They are looking for a girl here and there. With the current hero strength and hand speed, you can easily defeat a bunch of drunken hooligans. But it's dark here. If a person jumps out of a dark corner, then he won't notice him. Suddenly, John realizes that he recently saw on the list of items night vision lenses, which allow you to see at night as during the day. He immediately buys the item and heads forward with enthusiasm. With such lenses, no bully can hide from a guy. Unexpectedly, the main character discovers a girl sitting behind a trash can. He starts shouting and waving his hand, attracting attention. Then he puts his finger to his lips and asks him to sit quietly, without getting out. The loaf takes off and runs towards a group of guys if a fight cannot be avoided. Then you need to hit first. He jumps on the blonde guy from behind, smiling widely, confident in his victory. A man falls, sliding along the ground, ending up at the feet of his friends. One of the company wonders how stupid one would have to be in order to attack a group of peaceful guys alone for no reason at all. The main character flares up in aggression because they call him bad. One of them shouts to the others to stand up. This is a squad of handsome karaoke guys. Immediately the guys rush towards the hero to defeat him. Thanks to night vision, John sees every action of people, how awkward they are. He activates his hand speed, throwing punches at the guys' faces in a quick motion. With a calm expression on his face, the main character thinks that, for sure, People have realized everything and will not beat them anymore. They comment on this. They don't understand why John is moving so fast. He doesn't understand how the maniacs were chasing the girl, and now they want to call the police because it's their fault. The guy stops the speech of the people around them. Apparently they had a misunderstanding. John stops for a second and does not understand what we are talking about. The guy says that she forgot her purse at karaoke, and they wanted to return it and went after her, called her, but for some reason she ran away. The main character thinks that chasing a girl with such a crowd is not very prudent. Appearances are deceiving. They mistook them for hooligans, and people never thought that a fat guy like the main character would be so fast. John smiles broadly, apologizes for beating the guys, then offers some money to buy some bruise ointment or a band-aid. The guy puts his hand on John's shoulder, asks him not to worry, because they don't hold a grudge, and offers to join their squad. John refuses and says goodbye. The main character goes towards the girl to calm her down. She is very guilty before him, because she again caused so much trouble. The main character says that they should hurry to the hostel. Nothing bad happened. The lady reports that the gate is probably already closed. It is not known what can be done. The guy says he'll sort it out right away. It's time to turn on his charm. He knocks on the guard's window and asks if he is sleeping. The man suddenly raises his head and asks the guys why they came so late. John apologizes profusely for interrupting the man's sleep. The guard smiles sweetly and asks not to worry about him. The guy comes closer to him and asks in his ear if the man will open the gate. Having come to his senses, he says that the rules are the same for everyone. He cannot let the guys in at such a time. The man grins and thinks that he helped in any way he could, then it's up to him. The main character does not understand why he smiles and winks at him so much. Suddenly, John realizes the essence of the situation. Shock and surprise appears on his face. The men sharply slam the window, but the guy shouts that they misunderstood each other. The charm worked on him, but he helped more than necessary. The girl asks what can be done in this case. The guy says that there is no choice but to rent a room. The lady is very surprised by what she heard. She did not expect that it could come to this. She says that she likes John quite a lot, but she's not like that. It's too early for them to rent a room. The guy stops her and says that she misunderstood everything. He will rent a room for her alone. The main character can stay with a friend who lives nearby. The girl looks down embarrassedly, worried about what she said. John books a room on the website, seeing her off and asking if she has any documents with her. Before leaving, he says that he's very flattered by sympathy, but he already has a lady of his heart. The girl turns around and thanks him for his honesty, because this is very important in people. 10 minutes later, in an elite residential complex, the guy heads into one of the buildings. He goes through all the access systems. As soon as he received notification of enrollment in the academy, his parents immediately bought an apartment nearby for him. But he didn't live in it. At least he didn't rent out the premises. Although it's more fun in a hostel, sometimes it's also very nice to be alone. John takes off all his extra clothes, lies down on the bed, and enjoys the long-awaited rest. The main character has not felt so free for a very long time, at least under the roof. Suddenly one of his parents, namely his mother, calls his phone. The woman asks why he returned to the apartment today. John used to think that it was very convenient to open the door with a fingerprint, until he found out that this lock immediately sends a signal to his parents. The main character refuses and says that he doesn't have a girlfriend. John explains that if he has someone, he will tell his mother about it first. He doesn't understand why everyone from his family is interested in his personal life. Returning to his bed, Batten closes his eyes. It's already quite late, and he should go to bed. If Kathleen ever becomes his girlfriend, he will definitely bring her home to meet his parents, but now it's too early to think about it. John thinks that she should be at home now, and there is still a week before the concert. He wonders what will happen if he flies tomorrow and tries to meet her before the concert. Ultimately, John discards these ideas. No one likes too intrusive behavior. It's better to work on completing tasks and improve your characteristics even more, so that by the 5th day you can appear in front of the girl in the best possible way. It would be fun to complete tasks synchronously. Suddenly, some details reach him. The guy takes out his phone. There are only 200 kilometers from his academy to the sports palace. There should be less than 10 scenic spots along the way. If you run, broadcast at the same time, show your fingers up, take a break from running in the evenings, find some picturesque places, and draw illustrations on it. You can also donate the money that you accumulate during the stream to a charity foundation. This way, he will simultaneously complete tasks, show people positive examples, and in the end do a good deed. The very next morning, the main character is completely assembled and ready. He presses the record button and activates the broadcast. You just need to move forward. There are almost no people on the broadcast. Most of the viewers are probably still sleeping.
As soon as people wake up, they will most likely go for a walk.
At the moment, only 105 people are watching the main character, but only the most loyal subscribers are online. He reads the comments. None of the spectators believe in his strength. All the cars around are honking at each other. Something must have happened. The main character runs past a traffic jam and gives people a thumbs up. I hope no one misunderstands him. Suddenly, one of the people stops the guy and asks him to listen to him. He turns around and asks whether the man is addressing him or not. He asks if John mocks people who are stuck in traffic on the roadway. The main character looks at the man with confusion, because he just wanted to support people and share a positive mood. But the man does not understand him, shouts with aggression and swings a bottle of water. The guy twists the man's hand. He screams and asks him to lower it. He explains that he is simply his subscriber and wanted to prank him. In this way, no one knew that Batten would be so strong. John takes the water and thanks for the gift, asking to be careful with pranks. The man offers to take the hotel in his car, but it's time for John to keep moving. He shows his class to the guy and wishes him good luck on the road. The person also shows his finger up and says that he should wish him all the best. 12 kilometers have already been covered. The time taken is about 1 hour 29 minutes and 26 seconds. A short rest is recommended to avoid overloading the knees. The main character stops and looks at the roadway. The grandmothers decided not to waste time in the traffic jam and went out to dance. He decides to show everyone who is the master of dancing and also entertain his subscribers a little. The guy leaves the camera in place and says that it's better to relax, stretching his joints. Now he's going to join the people. While he is warming up, bikers pass by. The guy looks after them. It turns out that these are just journalists who came to film a report about dancing grandmothers in a traffic jam. But suddenly the camera is directed at him. The guy looks at people with confusion because he did not expect such an outcome of events. The girl says that they are journalists from a newspaper and asks for an interview. One of the guys comes up to him and says that they already know each other. They met at the mini-marathon. John says that he will never forget how they followed him and filmed him with a huge camera, then asks why they don't film grandmothers. The guys explain that they dance here all the time. The guy is a great find for them. The main character turns away, is embarrassed, and says that he is not in the mood right now. Suddenly, a new task appears in front of his face. He needs to become the hero of the local media news 10 times. It is listed as a special task. For it, you can get a plus of 16 to your charm. Even getting a plus of 3 gives an amazing effect. And if he gets 16 more, and after completing another task another 12, then something good might happen. The main character will become simply irresistible in the eyes of others. The girl explains to him that the guys were in a hurry to get to this place to do an interview. John snatches the microphone from her hands and says that he would be more than happy to talk to them on camera. He answers many questions, after which the lady thanks him for the interview. They say goodbye to him. The hero asks him not to put the report on the back burner. They undertake to do everything in the best possible way. Batten opens his phone, looking at the time. It's time for breakfast. He says goodbye to his viewers and says that he will return to them in an hour. John thinks that every broadcast is very profitable for him. He eats soup in the cafe, and after that, it's time to move on. The guy rested twice, took pictures with 13 fans, and then finally reached the town. After so much time, the main character finds himself at the first transit point. He needs to check into a hotel, take a shower, and rest, and tomorrow he will show local scenic spots. A month ago, John would never have believed that he could run an entire marathon in a day. Entering the room clean, the hero notes that for the last 5 hours he's been thinking only about his soul. Suddenly, the main character realizes that he only took panties from a change of clothes. Everything is soaked through with sweat and it stinks very much. No one would want to appear in front of a sympathetic girl like this. Suddenly, he realizes that among the items there were also clothes, which are not that expensive. This suit absorbs sweat, dries quickly, is breathable and keeps you fresh. A new suit will fit over your old clothes. The previously wet clothes are now completely dry. They smell fresh. It's just wonderful. Having finished with his business, the main character goes to bed, and in the morning he suggests starting the day by exploring local cuisine establishments. Suddenly, a voice from the side distracts him from speaking. 3 girls appear in front of him with drawings and gifts. These are subscribers. Seeing them, he asks them to roll up the posters, because this makes them quite awkward. The girls suggest that he go to an interesting establishment nearby. The lady says the distance is about 10 kilometers from here, but they have a car. The main character thinks that no one except 3 people will fit into such a tiny car. At least the hero cannot be squeezed into it. It turns out that theirs is a neighboring vehicle. It is many times larger than the previous one. The smallest girl sits in the front seat. The guy asks how long she has been driving. The lady turns sharply and drives quickly, which makes the main character very scared. Sitting at a table, they say that the 3 of them opened this hotel. They even made up the breakfast menu themselves, asking how their guests would like this establishment. The girls argued with other subscribers that they would feed him in the morning in their hotel, and in the evening they would put him to bed here. The first part of the argument has already been completed. He asks for help with the second. Suddenly, a new task appears before the main character. He must accept an invitation for an overnight stay from strangers 3 times. As a reward, there will be a plus to fertility and bad luck. They simply offered to stay in a hotel, but the system ties the ability to reproduce to this. A man once said that just putting a girl in a dress with short sleeves can immediately evoke a whole series of associations. When the hero was completing tasks, the girl could not even recognize some of the refusals. And when did she manage to become so smart that after the invitation for an overnight stay, she thought about giving birth to children? Suddenly, the hero realizes that talking to her about this is like playing a zither in front of a cow. Although fertility is an undoubted blessing, having many children is clearly a plus someday. In the distant future, John would be happy to have a large family. But with the characteristic of luck, you can seriously get into trouble. The ability to fertilize can be maintained through a healthy lifestyle, or, in extreme cases, thanks to medical intervention, but the consequences of bad luck will take a long time to clear up. After all the thoughts on this topic, the main character decides to refuse and not spend the night with them. They say that everything is absolutely free, and there should be no problems. John explains that he already has some plans for the evening, so he apologizes for losing the argument. It gets dark outside, the guy falls on his bed, and you can finally relax. The most important thing is that he did a great job today. If you try, you can finish the first stage of one of the missions tomorrow, and then take the hidden cap. On the 1st of October, the main character gets out of his bed, continues moving. The next point will be a new city. While working on the next sketch, the main character draws a picturesque bridge. John completes the second stage of the task, which he is incredibly happy about and laughs with happiness. The guy invites viewers to look at the area higher up in front of them is the main pedestrian street of this town. After upgrading his powers of observation, he began to see more and more clearly, notices every movement, every rustle, sees people in the distance as clearly as near. Suddenly, some terrible picture catches his eye. He tries to take a closer look. The guy stands behind the frightened girl. The pleasure of the process is visible in his eyes. John takes off and heads towards these people, asking them to grab them. Without thinking twice, he hits the guy hard in the jaw, causing the guy to fall. A crowd gathers around people. They look at what is happening. The guy shouts that he is not a pervert and didn't do anything if he doesn't believe it. He can ask her himself. People look at what is happening. John asks the girl to tell the truth. The offender will not get out of his clutches. The crowd is getting louder. Everyone is discussing her, discussing the situation. The heroine is shaking with fear and wants to cry. She says that no one touched her. The hero asks if she's really telling the truth because everything looks different from the outside. The girl runs away in fear and screams that no one harmed her. People ask to let the offended guy go because he really didn't do anything. He says that John should first apologize and then they will discuss compensation for emotional damages. The hero is absolutely sure of what he saw, and all this should be captured on video. Now they will call the police. The offended guy lies on the ground and says that he is the victim. People stand behind them and mock them because the situation is very controversial. One girl from the crowd says that she is ready to confirm everything and says to call the police. This man tried to get close to her from behind, and when she kicked him well, he switched to a more timid victim. Batten thanks her for her help. Without any hesitation, John takes out his phone and calls the police. The guy cries, asks not to call law enforcement, asks to let him go. The main character says that it's too late and asks what about his compensation. The girl comes closer and says that if he wants to understand why that girl said that nothing happened and ran away, then he should listen to the voices around him. People around condemn her. Everyone around comments on her short dress and behavior. She was silent and did not say anything in protest. The main character thinks that since the situation turns out this way, there is no way he will let this guy escape justice. He doesn't understand how all these people dare to speak like that. Batten asks them what that poor girl did wrong, why she deserved such treatment. The protesting lady stands aside and listens to everything, remains silent and observes the situation. John asks them if the same thing had been done to their sister or daughter. Would they also have sided with this pervert? If in such situations you shift responsibility onto the girl and not the guilty ones, then over time they will become even more impudent. People leave and say that he probably thinks he is better than everyone else. If someday this girl sees this recording, then Batten would like to say the following: if, when we meet the offender, we run away and do not seek a fair punishment from him, then he will feel impunity, and there will be even more victims. The lady gets into the frame and says that there is no need to be afraid of gossip and discussions of fools. You need to fight. Stand your ground. Suddenly the police appear behind them. They say that the speech is quite good. They will sort this out and ask you to come with them for testimony. The girl says that the main victim has already run away, but she can also testify against him. A woman appears next to them. She also saw everything and agrees to go with them. John thanks her, smiles sweetly, and says that he's the hero. An hour later, they leave the police station and ask the woman to take care of herself. The main character thanks the girl, explaining that they stream on the same platform. He is very surprised by this and clarifies whether she is broadcasting on the same application. The heroine gives her nickname and says goodbye to him. As soon as she returns home, she will immediately recommend his channel to her subscribers. Unexpectedly, the task is completed, and you will finally be able to buy a cap. He changes his glasses and buys a long-awaited item of clothing. Surprisingly, the main character does not feel anything. Suddenly, a person walking behind crashes into his back and begins to fall backwards. At some point, the man raises his eyes towards the obstacle and realizes that there is no one in front of him. The hero approaches him from the side, extends his hand. The man is very frightened because he has not seen him before. Just in case, he clarifies whether the man just ran into him. The guy confirms this theory and asks for forgiveness. The man takes all the blame on himself because he didn't notice John at all. He is very surprised because he really has become very invisible. It was not in vain that he spent 1,000 points on this cap. We need to check somewhere as soon as possible all the nuances of his new stealth. Suddenly, fireworks explode behind the main character, and a wedding is taking place somewhere nearby. This event is great for testing. A girl at the entrance to the room greets guests. A guy approaches her. It seems that the lady is looking directly at him. Apparently, the idea is a failure. John decides to wave his hand at her to make sure she's looking in the guy's direction. The girl does not react at all. Apparently, she looks through him. The hero realizes that she doesn't care at all, as if he's not here. Without thinking twice, the guy decides to go inside and see what's inside. There is a huge amount of delicious food around, many snacks and treats. John doesn't think long and doesn't choose. He takes everything he sees. Suddenly, the last steak remains on the tray. The guy looks at it and drools. Without thinking twice, he stretches out his hands to put it on his plate. But suddenly, another person intercepts the dish, also wanting to enjoy it. The guy asks who this guest is, where he is putting his hands. John asks in surprise whether he sees him. His opponent says that he is very big, and it will be difficult not to notice the guy. The main character apologizes and asks to take the steak for himself. He doesn't understand how this can be understood, because the cap sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work. John looks at the guy in surprise. Apparently he realized something. Perhaps this person is the owner of another similar system. The guy begins to turn his head hysterically from side to side, not understanding where his interlocutor has gone. Now the hero has realized what exactly it means, that when wearing a cap, the level of visibility will be close to zero. People only notice it through direct interaction. I wonder if it only works in real life or online, too. Without thinking twice, the guy turns on the broadcast to test his theory. In 10 minutes, not a single view was collected. Now all the nuances of this skill are clear. The Toastmaster notices that almost all the guests have gathered and proposes to raise a toast to the newlyweds. John wonders if he stands next to the bride. Will anyone notice him? Even if he does, he can step aside at any moment. The main character slaps himself on the cheek for such wrong thoughts. If he has acquired such abilities, this does not mean that he can blatantly interfere in the lives of strangers. He needs to monitor his behavior. The guy should not allow himself to indulge and remain unpunished only thanks to the system. Today is a big holiday for people. No one invited him. John eats everything here for free. It's worth drawing a wedding gift for them as a souvenir. He prepares a small card and puts some money in it to give to the newlyweds. Approaching the girl at the exit, he leaves a gift for her. She did not notice when he managed to approach. Heading in the other direction, the main character rubs his stomach and rejoices that he is finally full. Suddenly, the motorcycle wheel begins to spin quickly towards the guy. Naturally, he notices this and decides to jump in the other direction to avoid an accident. Barely having time, he jumps back and screams loudly because the situation is very unexpected. The hero did not even suspect the possibility of such cap effects. While it is better to walk without one, it is safer to walk near the road without a cap. In the following days, the main character followed the navigator towards his goal. There was not much left to run. The guy doesn't stop, even though he's very tired. Suddenly, he begins to hear various voices that encourage him. It turns out that he is running towards the tape to break it. Everything looks like a marathon. People are happy that their idol has overcome this distance. They rejoice at his victory. Subscribers hand out a towel and water, and John in turn tries to catch his breath. He wipes the sweat from his face and thanks everyone for it. After that, he squeezes him to the ground because he was very tired during the journey. The main character thanks everyone for their support. Some wrote that they would meet him at the finish line, but he could not even think that there would be so many people. Seriously speaking, as the guy promised, he will give all donations to a charity foundation. He takes out his phone and tells his audience that this is the last chance to participate in such a good cause. They have 3 more minutes, after which the hero will go into the statistics and tell people how much money he received during this race. The race began on September 30th. The money will be taken into account from this day. In total, in real money, it is $72,000. The amount is simply gigantic. No one was ready for this. It is not known how to get out of it. There is an option to donate $36,000. $36,000 yourself, without adding anything. But last time he doubled the amount, and this time he promised to do the same. If you repeat the past experience again, this will already become a pattern. Charity is of course good, but but who knows how much they will donate next time. In total, people sent 72,000. After the platform commission, there will be 36,000 left. No one underestimated the generosity of subscribers. John will add 14,000 on his own, and in the end, together, they will donate 50,000. The main character thanks all subscribers for their help. He suggests ending this broadcast on a good note, thanking the viewers for their support during the run. There will be no broadcast for the next few days. The guy wishes everyone a great time during the holidays. John waves and bids farewell to his fans before ending the broadcast. He says goodbye to the audience in life, and steps aside and puts the phone to his ear. It's his sister calling. They make an appointment. After some time, the main character finds himself near a multi-story building. He knocks on the door. Someone knocks. The girl pays attention to it. The blonde looks at the camera aimed at her brother. She's surprised that he came quickly enough. Suddenly, the sister is shocked by the appearance of her relative. Just recently, John had a cute third chin, but now he's completely thin. She touches it, examines it, and is surprised by it all. She herself was very thin recently, but now on the contrary, she has gained weight. All that was left of her brother were bones and skin. They fed him with the whole family. The guy was so cute and plump. The main character is indignant and says that he is still dealing with the consequences of caring. As a result, he decides to check with his sister why she has gained so much weight. She explains that the problem is in the new role, but the guy does not understand her because everything can be corrected with the help of computer graphics. Suddenly, another girl appears behind them and says that his sister eats for art. This is a singer who recently made her film debut, and she comments on John's appearance. He asks what the fate of his second sister is here. The hero was very lucky because they had just prepared a lot of food and his sister came to visit. When the main character came to visit the blonde in a past life, she then also gained weight, but the other sister was not here. It turns out that significant events do not change, only the details change. The brunette enters the bath and asks how long he will continue to wash his hands, because the food is getting cold. The sister explains that she needs to gain about 5 more kilograms. Lately, she's been eating the most delicious and high-calorie foods. John has lost a lot of weight lately, so he needs to eat everything. The guy inhales the smell of food, drools with desire to eat all this delicious delicacy. In his heart, he really wants to eat, because he hasn't eaten chicken wings for a long time, but it's advisable to control himself. The main character is given a huge plate of food and told to eat. He refuses, because he is losing weight now and he can't. John turns to the side and says he won't eat it all. He has to control himself. The guy is trying to meditate to control himself and calm down. The blonde asks if he's sure that he really doesn't want to eat. She pours his favorite cola into a glass. The guy missed this gentle hiss of bubbles. The loaf would madly like to drink it, to feel the taste. The sister asks if he will drink 1 glass during their meeting. John licks his lips. He practically agreed to fulfill her request. Despite the fact that he is losing weight, the guy raises the glass to his mouth and takes a small sip of the sweet drink. The guy gets great pleasure from this because he loves cola madly and would like to drink it all the time. Suddenly, he notices that the cola has disappeared from the glass, even though he only took a sip. The main character is very upset about this, but the blonde laughs and recognizes her beloved brother. She invites him to take a photo as a souvenir while he's still more or less chubby. Suddenly, a new task appears called Star Relief. To complete, you need to take a photo with 100 different famous people. This task is an upgraded version of one of the past missions. The reward is generous, but taking a photo with the stars is not easy. The other sister laughs and says the guys are pretty funny. He runs up to her from behind and points the camera to take a photo with her too. The girl asks why he did this because probably no one expected this. John winks at her and says that the lady laughed very charmingly. Such a shot could not be missed. My sister asks me to stop playing around and eating. The heroine says that she won't eat because she has to go to the red carpet tonight. She doesn't want her fat to stick out. The main character thinks about this because there are stars everywhere on the red carpet. He puts on his cap and thinks that this chance cannot be missed. Today, he will complete this task. A girl gets out of a luxury car. Many people are filming her. She walks smiling, waving her hand. People call her admiringly. All the attention of journalists is concentrated around the red carpet. If John carefully spins around the stars in his cap, then he will be seen in the newspapers. The hero of such headlines better not become. He decides to look behind one of the stands and see what else is there. A girl in a long yellow dress is photographed in front of the board. This is an autograph stand, which is what the guy needs. There are almost no journalists here, but every star lingers here for a couple of photos. The main character slowly approaches the girl to take a photo with her. He pulls out his phone, holds up 2 fingers and takes a photo. The girl says that she heard something. The guy quickly leaves and thinks about putting it on silent mode. She continues her photo shoot without paying attention to it. People ask her to smile. John thinks the plan is working better than expected. It remains to repeat the same thing about 97 more times. The guy takes picture after picture, capturing more and more popular people in his lens. This photography stand turned out to be a real find. 99 photographs have already been created. All that remains is to find the last star. A voice is heard in the distance. People greet the irresistible girl. His sister has already arrived. She dressed up very beautifully. Unfortunately, the photo with it will not count, but the photo will remain as a keepsake. Suddenly, a man calls his sister, and he and his brother turn their heads in his direction. This is a blonde guy. In the tabloids, they signed an affair with this actor. He calls her baby. It turns out it's true. A guy eats a watermelon. You can't find a better shot than here. She asks him to stay away from her. John did not expect such a turn of events. The girl knows very well that he spread ridiculous rumors about them. It's worth suing him and his pocket journalists, but she doesn't want to get dirty about it any further. As she leaves, the girl says that if he doesn't stop defaming her name, then she will arrange everything so that no one will ever want to work with him. The guy comments negatively on this behavior and insults the girl. He mumbles under his breath that no one needs the girl, because many people found out about her only thanks to a fictitious affair with him. John thinks that he needs to wash his mouth with soap, although there is another way to punish him. He decides to follow the blonde guy and follows on his heels. Suddenly, the main character steps on the back of his shoe. His foot jumps out of it. The guy starts to fall. His leg is exposed. The blonde lies on the carpet with his butt up without a shoe. He is in severe pain. I wonder where he hit with his foot. The guy doesn't understand what's going on. It's good that at least there are no journalists here. The main character points the camera at him and stands next to him, thanking him for the photo. The mission is completed. The guy is looking for his shoe here and there. John kicks him into the crowd to get back at him for his behavior. A shoe hits one of the journalists in the head. He is surprised by this and turns back with aggression. The guy screams and asks who threw his shoe at him. The blonde comes out from behind the wall. No one understands why he is without a shoe and beaten. Journalists immediately attack him. The guy asks him to put away the cameras and not take pictures of him, but no one listens. Let him consider this an instant karmic response from the universe. It will be useful for him to lock himself at home for a week and think about his behavior. The main character comes to the conference room and sits in the front rows. He decides to take off his cap and check out the updated specifications. The guy next to him doesn't understand when he sat down next to him. John asks if he thinks his smile is contagious. The guy does not understand this question and considers the main character sick. Then Batten asks you to take a closer look. Don't stop smiling. The person next to her notes that she really is very beautiful. Not just beautiful, she's very infectious. Looking at her makes you want to smile. He asks to be friends with him. Journalists appear all around. John has another +11 to his visibility. The main character puts on his cap and leaves the hall. It's time to get out. It's already completely dark outside. The streetlights barely illuminate the deserted streets. Tomorrow is the concert where the main character will go with Kathleen. I wonder how his updated characteristics will affect how she perceives him. A new day comes. Kathleen is waiting for her friend near the sports palace. The main character approaches his beloved, taking off his cap and saying hello. She asks how long ago he came. The guy chuckles and asks if he scared her. The girl says that it's quite difficult to get scared when the guy smiles so radiantly. Kathleen notes that they have not seen each other for only a few days, but the guy managed to lose noticeable weight. He needs to make up for the calorie deficit. The girl laughs and asks if this is a hint that she should keep her promise and take him out to eat. She herself was very hungry and had already noticed one establishment nearby. The girl asks her interlocutor if he liked it. John replies that she chose an excellent establishment. He has not eaten so deliciously for a long time. The main character decides to joke. Catherine laughs wildly and smiles widely. The guy thinks that this is his first real date in his life, while everything is going better than ever. He thinks what else he can do to surprise her. John tells her that he needs to make a quick call. After that, he steps aside and calls his sister Catherine in turn. Does not understand why he went so far away. The main character asks her if she wants to meet a rather popular girl before the concert. Kathleen is very surprised by this proposal, because she is not sure that this is possible. She invites her friend to leave this idea because the guard looks very stern. The guy asks her not to worry because they are already waiting inside. He goes to the security guard to talk to him. Kathleen stays away, not daring to come closer to them. John takes her hand and tells her to follow him because they were missed. They notice that they are holding hands and both feel embarrassed. People in the room are busy setting up the stage. The main character asks whether the girl wants to leave. The most interesting is yet to come. The girl is surprised by what she heard and clarifies whether he is telling the truth. The lady asks if this is the girl her friend wanted to introduce her to. John greets his sister and she compliments him on his weight loss. Kathleen in turn is shocked. This is a very popular girl, she is real. She offers to take a photo together, the other immediately agrees. John takes a photo of the two of them. Kathleen looks very happy in the photo. The sister gives John's new friend an autograph, and she is incredibly happy about it. Suddenly a brunette appears nearby, whom my brother recently saw on the red carpet. She asks if they are dating, but John denies and explains that they are just studying together. The main character stands aside and hopes that his sister won't say something stupid. Kathleen is very shy about all this because she is surrounded by media personalities. John pushes his sister aside and asks her to stop talking nonsense. He approaches a friend and apologizes to her. His sister sometimes likes to joke. Suddenly, a camera is pointed at them, preparing to take a photo. The brunette holds a smartphone in her hands and says that they look very cute together. John is ready to bet anything. This photo has already been sent to his sister. It is unknown why he continues to be embarrassed about this. Kathleen is a beauty, and he is no longer a child. After some time, the guys come to the concert hall. Everyone is asked to take their seats. Kathleen had never watched a concert in the VIP area before. Today is more like a dream. She met not one but two superstars. The girl asks how long they have known the brunette. She is a friend of his sister. Thanks to her, the guys went inside before the concert started. Kathleen wonders if his sisters are any other stars. John doesn't know whether he should tell her the truth. Now, deceit certainly won't lead to any good, but he can flirt a little. He says that for him, she is just a sister. She considers herself only an ordinary worker in the cinema industry. The girl wonders who in the cinema industry has the same last name as John. She is surprised, remembering a very popular actress. It's very strange that the guy, when he didn't mention her, probably doesn't want to live in the shadow of his star sister. The guy explains that he does not want to live and receive many questions about the personal life of his relative. If someone is under pressure because of his sister's success, it means he simply doesn't yet know how to realize himself in this life. And this is not a story about John. Kathleen had no idea how conscious the guy was. For the second time that day. He was opening up to her from a completely different side. The hall falls silent. The artists take the stage. The light is directed at his silhouette. The girl asks if the visitors are ready to have a blast. The lady would like to start this evening with a song called Immortal Youth. The artist asks if her fans want to hear her. Kathleen jumps up from her seat and screams with fire in her eyes, smiling widely. Suddenly, she turns to her friend and asks him why he is sitting. The main character gets up and also starts screaming along with all the other visitors. The girl on stage puts the microphone to her mouth and begins to sing wonderfully. Fans raise posters. They really love the girl and her work. Kathleen notes that the lady sounds much better live than on record. The artist reports that several songs have already been played, and during the break, the organizers will hold a lottery. Now the operator randomly points the camera at a random fan, and this lucky guy will be given a gift. And today, some guy becomes this lucky guy. The camera is pointed directly at John. He looks at the people around him in bewilderment. The main character is embarrassed and surprised by what is happening, but it was quite logical with such a pumped-up visibility. Kathleen smiles and says that the guy looks very good on screen, because he is also very photogenic. And again, visibility played a cruel joke on the main character. The artist turns to the screen and is surprised. She knows this guy. She also assumes that among the concert visitors there will be other people who have seen him not for the first time. John is handed a microphone. The guy thanks him for it. The singer continues to say, "This guy has come a long way before ending up at this concert, by the way. He ran to this city on his own feet from a neighboring settlement. He broadcast throughout the entire race and collected money, which he then donated to a charity fund. This is a man with will and heart. We all need to give him the well-deserved applause." People look at him with enthusiasm, clap their hands, and are surprised at such success. Batten also draws very beautifully. People comment on this person and rejoice at his presence in this place. The guy is very embarrassed. He says that everything has already been said about him and there is nothing to add. With his dazzling smile, the main character illuminates the entire hall. People become infected with it, begin to laugh and smile back. The actress is also very happy seeing this. Everyone around tells the guy that his smile is very contagious, but he thinks that it was worth controlling. The lady on stage doesn't understand what's happening to her. You need to stop laughing. Unfortunately, she can't help herself and laughs out loud. The operator also bursts into laughter, even though he is at work. One guy fainted from laughing and hit his head. There is an urgent need to somehow contain the spreading epidemic of laughter. The situation is going too far. The main character takes the microphone in his hand and loudly shouts at people, asking them to stop. The artist is glad that all this is over. She needs to continue singing as soon as possible. The next song is called Exactly 17 Years. But unfortunately, people start laughing at each other again. This is not over. Suddenly, a new task is opened called the Show Killer. It is necessary to cause some damage to the course of the show, but the task is quickly completed. Damage points are calculated based on the indicators of the detrimental impact on the course of the event, the degree of distraction on the system's wearer. The system evaluates the damage caused to the event within 1 hour and awards damage points at a time. The guy looks into the store with items. There's a microphone that can be connected with the power of thought to any audio equipment. If you buy it, you can connect to the speakers. But the reward for this task is not so attractive. The guy already has a lot of visibility. Highly pumped up photogenicity is of no use to him. He does not plan to become a screen star. Unless it makes sense to improve your vocals, any girl begins to melt when a guy sings well. Kathleen asks the guy to sit down. Her favorite song starts. The girl would like her friend to listen to the song with her. The concert should end in a maximum of half an hour. The contagiousness of a smile took away the lion's share of the concert from everyone. It's better to put off completing the task for now and enjoy the moment. Leaving the building, the main character apologizes to the girl for what happened tonight. Catherine says that it was the best concert of her life. Suddenly, a car drives up to them. The lady explains that one of the brothers has come for her. The girl turns to him and says that tomorrow she is going back to the academy and offers to go together. But John needs to go to his parents tomorrow. Since he died, the guy has never visited his parents, and if his death happens again, something terrible will happen. John had already warned them by phone about his arrival. They must not be disappointed. The lady herself took the initiative, but for sure it was not easy for her to do this if the guy refuses. Won't she think that he's turning her off? She says that if he has other plans, then there's nothing wrong with that. Batten explains that he really has other plans, because he was going to go home and visit his parents. Kathleen smiles and says that in that case they will meet at the academy. Turning to the car, she waves her hand at him and says that it's time for her to run. In the evening, the main character comes to visit his sister. She begins to ask him a lot of questions about who the girl in the photo next to him is. John says that his sister should ask the person who sent her the photo, because he already told the girl that they were just studying together. The blonde wonders if the guy started running and losing weight because of the girl they are just studying with. Since the teacher has already told her everything, why is she interested in this issue? She's surprised because it turns out he doesn't like guys. The blonde sighs and says that if he is interested in girls, then so be it. The main character explodes and starts screaming that he hasn't had a girlfriend all his life because he's fat. Having calmed down, he sighs and says that he should go and draw. Suddenly, the guy stops and says that he was going to go to his parents tomorrow. If his sister wants to go with him, then she can do it. The blonde remembers how their mother cooks, and she needs to gain weight. And anyway, my parents aren't home right now. John is surprised, because the other day he called them and said that he would come. The sister says that Mom most likely just wanted to prank him. He would come and ask where they were, and she would laugh in response. Most likely, she would have made a video call to see his reaction. The sister is already beginning to regret that she told him and ruined all the fun. Suddenly, she becomes very serious and says that this is all a joke. Having locked himself in the room, the main character asks not to come in, to call him only if the apartment is on fire. We need to write to Kathleen as soon as possible about the change in plans. He writes her a message and informs her that there is no need to go to her parents. Then he begins to roll on the bed and rejoice at the turn of events. Suddenly, another message arrives on his phone. Apparently, Kathleen answered him so quickly. But this is written by a sleepy grandfather. But the guy recently sent him a bunch of illustrations. It is not known what he wants from him now. He offers to meet in person and discuss cooperation. But the hero faces a new task to complete it. He must begin publishing his own manga, chapter by chapter, and publish a tankobon. The guy stands up on his bed with joy and is surprised at this turn. The main character dreamed of becoming a mangaka since childhood. But due to the inability to write normal scripts, nothing came of it. The guy completed previous tasks only for rewards, but he is ready to do this even for free. Besides, he has already improved his drawing skills, imagination, and hand speed. In addition, completing this task will give you the coveted screenwriting skill. This opportunity cannot be missed. This evening, the guy plans to complete the third stage of the task. The illustrator will pump up his imagination and drawing skills. If he works in conjunction with a good screenwriter, it should turn out to be a good manga. John imagines himself signing his own books at a book signing. Having gotten ready in the morning, the main character warns his sister that he is leaving, and also thanks her for sheltering her. She asks him to wait because she wanted to accompany him to the station. John asks why she should accompany him, and also clarifies since when did she become so caring. The blonde says that she has always been like this. There is nothing wrong with her sister wanting to spend more time with her brother, but most likely the reason is that she just wants to see Kathleen. She is indignant because her brother was again inventing something for himself. Be that as it may, John still has a meeting planned with someone. The sister clarifies whether the meeting is with a guy or a girl. The brother replies that it's with a guy. The blonde is incredibly happy. It was immediately clear that Kathleen is just a cover. Her brother cannot like girls. The lady says that in this case, she will definitely go with him. The guys need a sister's blessing. The main character puts on a cap and reduces his visibility, after which he slams the door hard and runs away. The girl is left alone and already forgets about what she was just about to do. She looks at her appearance in shock and thinks about why she dressed up like that at the drop of a hat. Having taken off all her clothes, the lady decides to get some sleep first. The guy meets the author at the station. He watches a video from yesterday's concert and laughs at the contagiousness of his smile. John puts a new batch of sketches on the table. He doesn't have much time, so he should get down to business quickly. Recently, a blind grandfather signed a contract with one of the platforms to create a manga based on his novel and wants to take the guy into the project. He asks to name any price. The main thing is that the guy becomes his main artist. John is surprised by this phrase and asks whether the novella really brings in so much money or whether it was found in the writer's garden. The man says that he really owns the mines, amazed at the guy's abilities. He inherited several mines. So, what is the problem and why the man is in no hurry to let go of his head? He is a major. The main character notices that the author has taken a dependent position, whether he is worried that the guy is raising the price, but the main thing is that the man likes the end result. John rejoices that he can soon become rich, but soon remembers one detail. The most important thing for him is to complete the task. The fee should be treated as nothing more than a pleasant bonus. In addition to the fee, the guy has two more conditions. First, the manga must be published in separate chapters, and second, he needs guarantees for the release of Tankobon. The man explains that the manga was planned to be released regularly in small main volumes, and it is impossible to promise about Tankobon. It depends on the platform. The rights to release the printed version of the manga will belong to them. Even if they want to release Tankobon at their own expense, they will need to get their consent first. The main character thinks that if he accepts this deal, he can spend a lot of time, but he will never complete the task. The man asks why he looks so disappointed. Is it really important to him to release the Tankobon? John confirms his assumption, asking him to give him a week to think about it before giving a final answer. Arriving at the station, the main character thinks that, apparently, to quickly complete his mission, he needs to come up with another plan. Maybe he can find ready-made short scripts somewhere. Suddenly some things dawn on him. He remembers his friend. He wrote a short romantic novel in the dormitory. You can probably take this as a basis. John decides to call him and asks what's going on with the novella now. The guy says that he finished it a couple of days ago, and after the holidays, he wanted to ask him to draw the cover. As for the work itself, it is an amazing story about incredibly pure feelings. This story is capable of touching both God and the devil, a canonical description of love and the quintessence of human genius. The blonde continues to praise his work. The world will not see anything better. The guy is trying to calm his friend down, apparently. He can't get a normal answer on the phone. The title of the short story is no less masterpiece. The neighbor suggests waiting for the hero to arrive. It will blow his mind. He is even jealous that he is just about to taste this miracle. Suddenly, John calls for Kathleen, and the baby boy is surprised that they are nearby. The main character says goodbye to his friend and says that they will talk after his arrival at the hostel. Kathleen notes that her friend is very punctual. She assumed that he would arrive earlier. Returning to the room, the guy asks to quickly show the novel, but the friend does not understand where he is in a hurry. Taking the sheets of paper in his hands, John begins to quickly read the contents and beginning of the work. Before he even has time to read the title, the main character throws his work at his friend. The blonde did not at all expect that John would treat this so reprehensibly. If love were taught in universities, this novel would become the main teaching aid. The main character still decides to read the work and feels many emotions from reading it. A neighbor comes up to him from behind and asks what he thinks about this topic. John grabs him by the jacket. Little did he know that a real screenwriting genius was hidden inside a slacker like him. The guys begin to work, crossing out some scenes that most likely will not pass censorship. The conflict between these heroes lacks sharpness. The price needs to be strengthened somehow. The guys are almost done with editing. It's time to start storyboarding. The blonde notes that in manga form this story has become even more interesting. John will broadcast tomorrow, sketch a couple of sketches, listen to the opinions of subscribers, at the same time promote their manga. After the broadcast, he will sit closely on the illustrations, and tomorrow they will be able to upload their creation to the site themselves. The guy wonders, isn't it necessary to first sign some kind of contract with the company? If they just release the manga freely, they won't get anything for it. The main character thinks that if they contact the platform, then it is not clear whether they will be able to persuade them to release it. It is easier to immediately persuade a friend not to contact the platforms. Having gathered his strength, the guy explains to his friend why he shouldn't do this. The blonde says that his head is already spinning from the whirlpool of thoughts. John explains a few more details to him and says that when they finish the entire manga, he will publish a tankobon for his own money. After starting the broadcast, Jonah says that he and his friend decided to release their own manga. So today he's working on a graphics tablet. He notes that viewers will be able to find out all the answers to questions if they watch the stream to the end. People look at it with admiration, comment, and are surprised by what is happening. The main character begins to work on the cover and says that it will amaze the audience. The guy adds that the guys will post the first chapter today and new chapters will be released every day. He notes that after the marathon and race to the city, John has noticeably increased his audience. Plus, his pumped-up visibility attracts random people. In a 2-hour broadcast, he gained almost 400,000 views. His own audience should be enough to give the manga a boost, and without platform support, it's time to finish the first chapter. Using the speed of his hands, the main character quickly finishes page after page, and then puts his pen on the table and asks his friend to take over the work. The sleepy blonde looks at his friend with incomprehension. John comes up behind him and tells him that the first chapter is ready for download. Getting out of bed, the guy quickly runs to the computer and asks to let him look at their baby. He imagines the child in his arms. The guys laugh at this. John stands next to him and asks him if the guy will change anything. The blonde takes the main character's hand and says that the drawing is simply incomparable. Batten asks if they should download the first chapter right now. The neighbor stands in the middle of the room and begins to pray that everything will go well. John also goes into the toilet and begins to ask all the gods for everything to work out well. Suddenly, a cry is heard from the room that it's all over. Coming out of the toilet, the main character clarifies whether the download is finished. The screen says that the resolution of the uploaded images does not meet the requirements of the sites. John smiles widely and says he assumes something serious had happened. It only takes a couple of swipes to correct the situation. The check is successfully completed. The guys rejoice and hug. Other neighbors come into the room and look at the guys with confusion. The main character shows the guys that he and the blonde have uploaded their first pussy. He shows them the site and tells them to quickly, add bookmarks and donate. Suddenly, a new task appears. To complete it, you need to collect 1 million bookmarks and donations on your manga titles. For the first time, 2 tasks were opened at the same time. It is true that hard work will be rewarded by heaven. The next morning, the main character comes to the classroom for pairs. The manga was downloaded last night, and today the numbers are already huge if you release 1 chapter a day. Then in a couple of weeks, you can complete all the tasks related to the manga. The teacher pays attention to the children. They again do not listen to her. They need to be taught a lesson. On Friday, there will be competitions at the academy. Participants from this group must be declared. A minimum of 5 people are required to participate in 10 sports disciplines. The woman screams, calling the main character by name. The guy drops his phone from his hands and says that he is attending class. She asks him to sign up for at least 3 disciplines. The main character is sweating profusely, clarifying whether the teacher is speaking absolutely seriously. She asks if he wants to sign up for all 4 or even 5. But the guy replies that 3 is enough. The woman pats the guy on the shoulder and says that this is a very great honor. Noodles chuckles and tells her that she made a great choice. The teacher puts sheets of paper on the table and says that she chose it. Batten informs his friend that he should have sat in silence. They mocked him alone. John leans to the floor for the phone. When she screams his name, he drops it in fright. The guy looks at the screen of his gadget and sees a huge crack. The teacher asks a member of the sports committee to find the remaining participants. The girl picks up pieces of paper and says that she will definitely do everything. She approaches the guys and asks them to fill out the forms that they were just given. Noodles hands over the paper and says that he has signed up for the 100-meter run, but John needs to think about it some more. He looks at his friend and says that the guy did the simplest thing. The girl asks not to delay too much. They don't have any classes after lunch. It's worth going to train. She approaches all her classmates, offering various competitions. The Academy of Arts is mainly attended by people who are very far from sports. Even if a guy has a chance to take some first place, with a certain amount of luck, he can even make a little progress in completing the task called champion. Of all the disciplines, he is closest to all running tasks. But the longest distance is 5,000 meters. Last year, the winner of the race barely crawled to the finish line, and it took him 22 minutes. We can assume that this year, no one at the academy will run the distance in less than 20 minutes. With his trained speed, he runs this distance in 25 minutes if he gives his best and uses a couple of cheating features of the system. Then the chance of winning will clearly be higher. The main character remembers that he has orders from the system, so there's no point in guessing on your own. He turns to the system. He needs to calculate the probability of victory in each discipline. The greatest probability of victory is shown in the javelin throw and shot put. His strength is fine. Ultimately, the guy decides that he should take exactly these standards. After lunch, the guy comes to the sports ground to practice. It's a pity that his sneakers won't help with throwing a shot or a javelin. You need to at least read a little about this on the internet. Suddenly, his classmate Noodles and some girl approach them. This is her neighbor in the dorm. She specially called her to help him train. This girl is called Little, but the main character does not understand this, because they are the same height. Although outwardly she is very tall, but at heart she is rather fragile and shy. She already has experience of competing at provincial-level competitions, so she has a lot to gain. Approaching his friend, he says that the girl asks about him quite often. Apparently the guy has a fan. A classmate says that her neighbor should show the guy how she can handle balls. She takes her friend John and runs away with him in an unknown direction. The guys are left alone. The main character goes to get some cores to practice. He doesn't know if Noodles is playing a prank on him or if this girl really likes him. Now you shouldn't think about it because the main thing is to learn how to put the shot. John thinks it's worth solving problems as they arise. The girl snatches the cannonball from the hero's hand to show him how to work with it correctly. The guy stops her because she took the male core. The female one remained in his hand. He doesn't understand whether the girl knows exactly what to do, or if this is just an excuse to talk to him. She takes a certain position and asks to look more closely at her actions. She throws a shot and it stops at 10 meters.